Chapter 401. The sturdy ground, under the scorching flames, even started to show signs of melting. Raging flames continuously spurted out from the crimson fire beast's huge mouth, with the power to destroy everything, turning this huge stone chamber space into a terrifying sea of fire. Ghost Lee's figure, from the start, disappeared in the fire and never appeared again. After spurting out a wave of flames like a mountain, the crimson fire beast's burning eyes stared fiercely into the sea of fire, as if searching for something. Temporarily paused. The scorching flames were still burning on the ground. The surrounding air also seemed to be boiling. However, Ghost Lee and that monkey Xiao Hui on his shoulder disappeared at the same time. Could it be that he had already turned into ashes? The next moment the answer appeared. Above the sea of fire, Ghost Lee's figure appeared in the air. In that instant, Ghost Lee, like an evil spirit, actually flashed above the crimson fire beast, completely avoiding that terrible flames. Right now, in his hand, that soul-devouring stick glimmering with green light once again appeared, in the sea of fire, his face indifferent and calm. The monkey Xiao Hui on his shoulder, facing that huge magical beast below, suddenly bared its teeth, roared once, obviously facing this old opponent. It too became agitated, even though it was a monkey, but after being by Ghost Lee's side for so long, in its blood, more or less had some of the sinister orb's unyielding ferocious energy. The crimson fire beast made an earth-shattering roar. The sound reverberated far away, like thunder, following which, that huge body abruptly soared into the air. In that instant the surrounding air was almost completely vaporized by the scorching flames, leaving only the scorching heat. That huge body glimmering with savage fire, with a loud crash, arrived. This time, Ghost Lee did not dodge, looking at that ancient beast which was several times bigger than himself. A strange glint seemed to flash past his eyes. And behind the crimson fire beast pouncing over, that strange eight ferocious deities' halo was still following behind it, slowly rotating, bright and uncertain, like a mysterious eye, coldly watching this battle. At the tip of the soul-devouring stick, the sinister orb's dark red blood veins, in a moment, lit up completely. Facing that fire body pouncing over, Ghost Lee not only did not retreat, this time he faced it head-on. The crimson fire beast didn't seem to think that this insignificant human would dare to confront it face to face. Instead, its body paused for a moment, but then the flames became more intense. With a loud roar, it bit down. Huge sparks like rain from the horizon rained down, but when they were 3 chi away from Ghost Lee, they met with an invisible barrier and were all bounced off. At the same time, Ghost Lee was still in front of the crimson fire beast, that pair of blazing gigantic eyes, almost in front of him. Ghost Lee was surrounded by layers of raging flames. Beside him, Xiao Hui made a sharp cry. The soul-devouring stick moved forward, aimed at the crimson fire beast's head, stabbed over. The green light instantly flourished, like a brilliant lotus flower bursting out from the flames. Following which, an incomparably beautiful red that was as red as fresh blood bloomed from the depths of the lotus, bright red. The sinister orb in the scorching air also seemed to tremble slightly, the power channeled into it, for how many years had it not been so powerful? That green energy in the depths of the orb revolved rapidly, as if roaring and thirsting for slaughter. That was clearly a sea of fire, but the surrounding temperature suddenly turned cold. An icy cold air descended from the sky, enveloping the crimson fire beast. For the first time, this ancient guardian beast instinctively felt fear in its shock, but an even stronger instinct urged it to make an even more ferocious roar, bit down towards Ghost Lee. When that giant pounced down, the raging flames rumbled down, and at this moment, Ghost Lee's soul-devouring stick stabbed deeply into the crimson fire beast's roaring mouth. The gigantic body paused in the air. The surrounding air was still scorching hot, but a chill, as if from the depths of one's heart, emanated out. Unknowingly, since when Xiao Hui was still crouching on Ghost Lee's shoulder, its body did not change, but in its 3 eyes, as if it had received some agitation, had already turned red, looking extremely glaring. and right now watching the Crimson Fire Beast under Ghost Li's devouring soul attack, its declining momentum in an instant, Xiao Hui's face revealed a savage expression, facing that Crimson Fire Beast, bared its fangs, laughed hideously. In a blink, the surrounding temperature continued to drop, the high temperature on the Crimson Fire Beast also receded, as if carrying an indescribable fear in its eyes. The Crimson Fire Beast's burning eyes glinted with fear. Ghost Li, who was standing in the air, slowly lifted his head. From the soul-devouring stick in his hand, red fire filled the entire magical weapon, as if it was mercilessly absorbing the Crimson Fire Beast's essence, bit by bit. Ghost Li's face seemed to show slight pain. A layer of scarlet-yellow light also appeared on his face, but after flashing 3 times, it was covered by a layer of golden light. The Crimson Fire Beast could no longer support its gigantic body, fell down from the air. The insufferably arrogant monster just a moment ago, right now had turned into such a weak state. If one did not see it with one's own eyes, it would be hard to believe. The flames in the stone chamber quickly dissipated. The temperature also dropped rapidly. Replacing the high temperature was the extreme chill from Ghost Li's body, with a trace of evil smell. The Crimson Fire Beast fell to the ground. The raging flames on its body were almost gone. Looking from afar, this guardian beast seemed to have lost most of its strength. After staring hatefully at Ghost Li, who was slowly falling, the Crimson Fire Beast finally made a roar, and then its gigantic body slowly dissipated into the air. Just that although its body dissipated, the mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos in the air did not disappear, and seemed to not be affected by the battle just now. It was already flickering, slowly rotating, slowly retreating. Finally, it stopped again, in front of the beast deity who was still sitting on the ground, above that ancient brazier. In the brazier, the flames quietly burned. In a stretch of icy cold air shrouded by Ghost Li's sinister orb evil power, this was the only fire and light. It seemed to be completely unaffected by Ghost Li's evil power. Ghost Li once again landed on the ground, but on his face there was no joy of victory. Looking at the still burning flames, his pupils seemed to be contracting slightly. That mysterious halo, slowly rotating, the 8 ferocious deities' statues, lit up one by one, dimmed and then brightened, as if mysteriously telling something. Under the halo was the beast deity's deeply weary but still smiling face. Clap, clap, clap. The beast deity lightly clapped, warmly smiled, said, "Impressive, impressive. I didn't expect you to have such skills, and such a powerful magical weapon. Although I had expected your skills to be high, but I didn't expect it to be high to this extent." He quietly sighed, as if mocking himself, said, "I always seem to be wrong, isn't it?" Ghost Li looked at him, unhurriedly said, "The Crimson Fire Beast that appeared this time, although it was imposing, but its power cannot be compared to that time in Fenxiang Valley Inferno Altar." The beast deity looked at Ghost Li, did not speak, but in his eyes slowly showed approval, nodded. Ghost Li indifferently said, "This Crimson Fire Beast is clearly the guardian spirit beast of the 8 ferocious Inferno formation passed down by the shaman tribe, so as long as this formation is present, and can still be activated, it can summon this kind of first-class beast. Just that the Crimson Fire Beast is a spirit beast imprisoned in the formation. The greater the Inferno energy in the formation, the more powerful it will be." He glanced at the brazier in front of the beast deity, said, "This brazier, is it the legendary Gathering Fire brazier, that can gather the essence of heaven and earthly fire?" The beast deity smiled, said, "That's right, it is the Gathering Fire brazier." Ghost Li nodded, indifferently said, "With this Gathering brazier, you can use the Inferno energy in it to drive the Inferno, activate the formation and summon the Crimson Fire Beast. But although this magical weapon is mystical, it may not be comparable to the Inferno altar in Fenxiang Valley. The rich firepower accumulated by the lava for thousands of years, continuously supplying the formation, so the Crimson Fire Beast that you summon this time, although it looks powerful, but it is just an empty shell." "Ha ha, good, good." The beast deity laughed, clapped his hands and said, What a good empty shell. Well said. Unfortunately in this world, other than you, who else can say this? Ghostly looked deeply at him, said, At least, the person who severely injured you has the right to say this. The beast deity's smile suddenly disappeared. His face darkened. His gaze also turned cold, looked at Ghostly. Ghostly looked straight into his eyes. His gaze was calm, but he also felt a breathtaking aura emitting from that sickly-looking body. The beast deity looked at Ghostly, slowly opened his mouth and said, I heard, the person who injured me seemed to have some grudge with you? Ghostly's expression immediately changed. The two men looked at each other, did not speak again, but the atmosphere in the stone chamber seemed to have dropped to freezing point. Chapter 402. And at this moment, suddenly, both of them seemed to sense something at the same time. The beast deity lifted his eyes slightly. Ghostly instead turned around, looked at the entrance of this stone chamber. That glance, like a startled swan sweeping past in the darkness, left a mark in their hearts. The crimson fire beast had already disappeared. The entire huge stone chamber once again fell into darkness. Only the brazier in front of the beast deity still had a ball of flame quietly burning, illuminating the surrounding small area, emitting some light and warmth. Even the slowly rotating halo of the 8 ferocious deities above the brazier was not that dazzling. However, at that moment, in the depths of the darkness, a figure was gently enveloped by a light blue and gentle radiance, standing there quietly. A familiar face was reflected in his eyes. He was stunned for a moment, but it felt like thousands of years had passed. In a daze, looking at her, step by step, slowly approaching. Ainensweki's hand in the dim darkness looked very pale, not knowing if it was because she was grabbing Tianya with too much force. But on her face there was not the slightest agitation, just like when they first met, that cold and frosty lady. She slowly approached, walked to his side and stood down. Did not speak. In her eyes there was only the reflection of that ball of flame. That moment, how much time had passed? The beast deity silently watched this man and woman's strange actions, but did not say anything, and did not do anything. In his deep eyes that could never be seen clearly, flashed a complicated expression, but who would be able to understand? And him, stood side by side. Ainensweki's eyes, ever since she walked over, did not look at Ghostly again. After a long while, in the slightly strange atmosphere which had been silent for a long time, only her low, calm voice, but as if in that calmness there was an indescribable emotion, quietly said, So. It really is you. Ghostly did not speak. He watched this lady before him, that graceful and beautiful face. After a long time, what he did was only one thing. He towards her slowly smiled. Then, he stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, and took a deep breath. The fire that reverberated from the depths of his chest seemed to warm his entire heart. Lusweki seemed to have sensed something. Slowly, her pale face blushed. But she did not try to hide it. She only, on her frosty face, she looked forward at the ball of fire, the fire reflected in her eyes, and smiled. That warm smile. Two figures stood side by side, looking at the beast deity, facing this insufferably arrogant devil. In the beast deity's eyes, a pained expression flashed past, and he slowly lowered his head. The fire burned quietly. The scene in the stone room seemed to be a little hazy in the light of the fire. The three figures stood there for a long time. Until, the beast deity raised his head again. His gaze paused on Ainen for a moment, then fell on Ghostly. He suddenly said, Can you promise me one thing? Ghostly was stunned. He did not expect him to say such a thing. For a moment, he did not know how to answer and could only say, What? The beast deity's face showed a deep weariness. He said faintly, No matter what your motives are, you will have to fight me anyway. If you die in my hands, naturally there is nothing to say. If I lose, I will not blame you. I only hope that after you leave this ancient cave, do one thing for me. Ghostly said, Speak. The beast deity was silent for a moment, said, You remember there is a stone statue at the entrance of the cave, right? A strange expression flashed past Ghost Lee's face. He slowly nodded and said, "Yes." The beast deity's voice became low. He faintly said, "If you have the chance to leave, help me pick a bouquet of her favorite lilies and place it in front of her." "Lilies? I understand." Ghostly slowly nodded, but in his tone, there seemed to be some strange emotions. Anan felt it but did not say anything, only silently looked at him. The beast deity shook his head, as if laughing at himself, then turned to Ghostly and said with a smile, "But what about the two of you? If you stay here and never have the chance to leave, what wishes would you have?" His gaze slowly fell from Ghostly to Anan's face. He smiled slightly. A strange glint seemed to flicker in his eyes. He said, "What about you? Do you also have any wishes?" Ghostly was silent. Anan did not speak either. After a moment, Anan quietly looked at Ghostly, only to see that on his face there was a vaguely complicated expression, with some traces of pain. She took a deep breath, suddenly said, "I have no greater wishes." Although her tone was flat, her words were resolute and decisive. She didn't give herself any leeway in the slightest. Perhaps she really did not want to give herself any leeway? Ghost Lee's body trembled. Then, he looked at the girl beside him. Gazed deeply. Did not speak. The beast deity looked at Anan. The strange glint in his eyes grew brighter and brighter. Suddenly, he clapped his hands, although his body was still swaying, but he still stood up. Bright-colored silk clothes swept past him. The evil beast Tautai also stood up, growled softly beside its master. Good, well said." The beast deity looked at Anan, his eyes slowly emitting a kind of inexplicable fanaticism. That's it, in this world, there are still women like her." He looked up to the sky and laughed, as if he had gone mad, but at the end of his laughter, it sounded like a wail, with a little whimper. As his body swayed, an inexplicable aura slowly rose, the originally quiet and slowly rotating halos of the 8 ferocious deities suddenly sped up, and at the same time, the 8 deities lit up at the same time. That ancient ferocious aura that seemed to come from the ancient fiend god was completely different from the previous crimson fire beast's roar, instantly spread out. The flames in the ancient brazier, under the urging of the demon power, once again slowly became bigger. And this time, that ball of burning flame slowly left the brazier, like a body embedded in that mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos, together with the 8 deities, rose into the air, burning fiercely. "You are right, the crimson fire beast that I summoned is indeed not as good as the Inferno Altar's formation because of the lack of Inferno power." After the halos, a red glow appeared on the beast deity's pale face, as if because of the descent of this exceptional evil power, he was also revived. But the formation here was personally set up by Linglong, far surpassing the formation at the Inferno Altar. This mystery, I will let you all see. In his mournful long laughter, his entire body floated into the air, slowly merged into that ball of flames, and finally disappeared. On the ground, Tautai roared loudly. The next moment, on that 8 ferocious deities, suddenly, all of the deities' eyes like bloodshot, suddenly lit up with red light, like the evil demons waking up again. In that instant, the sky full of deities howled together, the sharp cries blanketed the sky and earth, deafening. That ball of fire burned more and more, deep inside the fire, rumbling like thunder sounds were heard continuously. The heart of the fire gradually turned pure white, even though it was far away. With Ghostly and Lu Swecky's cultivation, they could still feel the unbearable heat. Amidst the demonic howls that filled the sky, a mysterious incantation reverberated. The incantation was obscure and long, ancient and profound. It was as if the ancestors of the ancient times were worshipping a god, using all the faith and spiritual energy in their bodies to summon the god in their dreams. Huge flames, burning. That incantation like a storm, tearing people's hearts, in the incantation like knocking on one's soul. Suddenly, an enormous and unstoppable force abruptly spread out from deep inside the huge flames. That force was so strong, Ghostly and Lu Swecky could not resist it. were forced to fly backwards. What terrible incantation, and what kind of terrifying spiritual creature was summoned to have such power? For a moment, Ghostly and Lu Swecky's countenance changed. How could this be a force that human could resist? That flame burned crazily, like a demon dancing in the air, welcoming the terrifying arrival of the fire. The hottest place, almost the pure white flame core, suddenly, in the violent flashes, like some kind of creature, slowly panted, opened its eyes. In an instant, the ancient and hard rock walls around them began to shatter. Countless huge cracks appeared on the ground, and from the depths of the cracks, a scarlet light shone out. It was as if there was a terrifying volcano beneath their feet that was about to erupt. And that panting sound, like a dragon roar in this space, reverberated. Chapter 403. Subdue Devil Ancient Cave Entrance. Before Linglong Witch Goddess statue, Hei Mu stood silently, and the ferocious black tiger also seemed to be silent, standing behind him. Lu Swecky and the rest had already been in for a long time, not to mention Ghostly and the rest, and in such a long period of time, nobody knew what exactly happened in that ancient cave. Just that, the two brothers did not seem to show any concern. In their eyes, there seemed to only be that Linglong Witch Goddess statue. Suddenly, in this silence, the street beneath their feet started to tremble slightly. Indistinct roars of thunder came from that subdued devil ancient cave. Hei Mu's body shook, turned and looked at the black tiger, but before they could understand, an even bigger change had already happened. The originally dark firmament, shrouded in the black clouds above the scorched black mountain peak, suddenly shot out a golden light, like a sharp sword, descended from the sky, piercing through the heavy darkness. Following that, the edges of the thick black clouds started to emit faint golden light, as if the black clouds were inlaid with a layer of golden light. The rumbling of thunder, which had not been heard for thousands of years, resounded in the sky above the cursed mountain once again. The clouds began to surge crazily, as if there was some kind of mysterious power that was continuously awakening, causing even the heavens and earth to be moved. Hei Mu and the black tiger stared blankly at the changes. Suddenly, Hei Mu turned, hesitated for a moment, his voice seemed to tremble slightly, quietly said, "The Een Wind," also disappeared. The black tiger's huge body stared deep into the cave. In the deep darkness, there was no more bone-chilling Een Wind. Replacing it was blazing, rolling heat waves. "What's going on? What happened inside?" Hei Mu's voice was indistinctly agitated, but his face was covered by the black cloth. His expression could not be seen clearly, only that he was staring intently at that subdued devil ancient cave. On the contrary, the black tiger, facing these changes, his expression was extremely complicated and strange, as if there was indescribable joy, but the face formed by the white smoke revealed a trace of sorrow. "It's the fire dragon, the 8 wilderness fire dragon," he indifferently, quietly said. "What?" Hei Mu turned around in disbelief. He stared at Hei Hu and said, "What did you say? The fire dragon of 8 remotes? In this world, besides Empress, how could there be anyone else who can summon the fire dragon of 8 remotes?" Black Tiger's gaze was vast, slowly turned to that stone statue after a long while, said, "Originally there was no one here, because that summoning incantation and the Inferno Mirror had long been lost, but—" he smiled and then looked at Blackwood with a strange expression, said, "But, in this world, there is still one person who had comprehended the shaman lady's entire witchcraft incantation, and the only remaining 8 savage inferno formation that could summon the 8 wildlands fire. Dragon, coincidentally, is here." Blackwood was startled and did not speak. After a long while, he shook his head dejectedly and said, "So he actually has this move. But the 8 desolate fire dragon is a vicious creature that can destroy all things. He summoned this divine beast. Could it be that he forgot that the Empress used this fire dragon to burn him alive?" Hei Hu sneered and said, "Who knows? I only remember what Her Highness said to me on her deathbed before she left." Blackwood was shocked, said, "What? Thick hatred appeared on Black Tiger's face. He abruptly turned around and looked at the strange changes, the tremors in the subdued devil-ancient cave, sneered and said, "Her Highness said, no matter how many years later, once the fire dragon revives and descends here, it will be the end of this sin." Mu mumbled, "When the sin ends." Suddenly, his expression changed, said, "Don't tell me that Her Highness had already predicted this?" Black Tiger ignored him. To him, in this scorching hot wind, the clouds rolling in the horizon, golden rays flashing chaotically, at this moment of heaven and earth chaos, in his eyes, there was only that stone statue. He slowly moved to the front of the stone statue, all the expressions on his face disappeared, quietly said, "Her Highness, Her Highness. I have finally waited for this day, don't be anxious, wait a while more. When everything is over, Black Tiger will come and find you, and from then on, serve you forever." Mu stared blankly at this elder brother of his previous life, and then, he looked up to the sky. That day, what was returned to him, was a clap of thunder. Rumble. The wind and clouds became more turbulent, the tremors of the earth became more intense. In the subdued devil-ancient cave tunnel, Xing Shu took half a step back, avoided a flashing white light body, hid at the side, but at the same time, he was secretly groaning. Ever since Li Sun and the rest, for some reason, suddenly provoked a white-attired lady in this subdued devil-ancient cave, and this lady who looked even more seductive than Jean Pinger, had unbelievably high skills, Li Sun and the rest of the Fenxiang Valley disciples rushed up but were all blocked by a strange Dao technique, and right now, all of them were trapped by this lady's spell. That was exactly the same spell that Xiao Bai used to trap Jean Pinger. The mysterious white light ball charged towards the crowd. The Fenxiang Valley disciples used their own magical weapons to deflect it, but unexpectedly the more they fought, the more magical weapons appeared. At the start it was nothing, but after a while, the entire cave was enveloped by the white light. Fenxiang Valley disciples were numerous, but their ability to adapt to the situation was not as good as Jean Pinger. That white light body almost in a blink had spawned countless of them, all charged and collided in the air, making those Fenxiang Valley disciples who initially wanted to capture Xiao Bai and punish her, groaned incessantly. Seeing the Fenxiang Valley disciples in a predicament, Xing Shu could not stand by and could only join in the battle. Unfortunately, that white-attired lady's skills were extremely high. Xing Shu could not catch up to her. On the contrary, he was soon surrounded by many white light balls. But Xing Shu was after all smarter than others. After a few rounds, he immediately knew something was amiss and hurriedly loudly reminded the Fenxiang Valley disciples beside him not to randomly cut these white light balls. Everyone then came to their senses. But even so, these white light bodies already filled the sky, tightly surrounding these righteous faction disciples, shooting to the east and colliding to the west. Everyone was in a fluster. Xiao Bai slowly descended from the sky, landed on the ground, looked at the flickering white light. Fenxiang Valley people's battered and exhausted state, sneered and heaved a long sigh. Although she had attained Taoism for 1,000 years, but she was definitely not some compassionate, humble celestial being, imprisoned by Fenxiang Valley in the Inferno altar for hundreds of years. This resentment, although she let it off lightly that day but not finding trouble with Fenxiang Valley people, was already Fenxiang Valley disciples burning incense, and now they actually came knocking on her door. Coincidentally, she was having a conversation with Ghostly and was in a bad mood. Could be said that she had bumped into the barrel of a gun. It was also at this moment that Xiao Bai, who was feeling proud of himself, suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A palpitating feeling that he had never felt before suddenly rose from the depths of his heart, and his heart involuntarily jumped a few times. An ancient and violent force, ahead, deep within this subdued devil-ancient cave, slowly rose, as if sleeping for thousands and thousands of years, finally awakening for the first time. And just the beginning of this awakening had already changed the color of heaven and earth. Rumbling thunder sounds slowly came from the depths of the earth, violent tremors, following which from afar like waves surged over, the earth started to shake violently. This time, numerous huge stones started to fall, as if unable to withstand this huge force rebirth. Everyone turned pale with fright. In panic, Xing Shushu used all his strength, loudly called out to Li Sun, "Li Senior brother, it is too dangerous here, it is better for us to leave first." Li Sun's face was pale. With one sword he deflected a charging white light ball, just that in his flustered state of mind, that light ball after being deflected a few chi away, again split into two identical light balls, once again gathering strength in the air, looked like it was about to charge over again. But ever since this happened, Xiao Bai seemed to be distracted. Her Dao skills also slowed down, the speed of those light balls also slowed down. Chapter 404. Li Sun's face alternated between green and white, suddenly clenched his teeth, loudly shouted, "All get out, I will cover the rear." After speaking, he flew up, immediately his sword rays flourished, for a moment blocked most of the white light bodies. The Funxiang Valley disciples had always respected him. After hearing the words, they looked at the surroundings again. It was indeed not a place to stay for long. Immediately everyone started to run towards the cave exit. Just that Li Sun did not seem to have the intention to leave. Xing Shushu flew over, helped him to block several of the white light balls, loudly said, "Li Senior brother, why are you not leaving?" A trace of hesitation flashed past Li Sun's face, said, "But Lu Junior's sister is still inside." Xing Shushu frowned angrily, said, "Lu Junior's sister is highly skilled, she may not be in trouble, you being so insistent, I'm afraid you will only harm others and yourself." Li Sun's countenance changed a few times, the surrounding tremors became more intense, the falling stones after such a long time. Not only did it not seem to be weakening, instead it seemed to be intensifying. He heaved a long sigh, eventually still flew back. Xing Shushu glanced into the cave and also followed out. Those people's conversation, every word fell into Xiao Bai's ears, just that to her, other than faint sneers, nothing else touched her heartstrings. The white light balls in the cave moved slower and slower. After Li Sun and Xing Shushu's figures swiftly disappeared, the white light balls which had lost their targets gradually stopped in the air, then gradually gathered, slowly merged, gradually forming a white light ball, flew towards Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai slowly turned, gazed into the cave. That ancient and enormous power was still continuously strengthening. Xiao Bai could even clearly sense that it contained an incomparably powerful destructive power. The surrounding rock walls continued to shake, large and small stones peeled off, in the rumbling sounds, fell to the ground, just that within 3 chi from her, not a single stone could hit her. The white light ball flew back to her like a small elf, danced and spun around her, as if trying to fathom its master's thoughts. And on its master's blank face, there was only worry and disappointment. In the deep darkness, at this moment, a loud roar burst out, like a huge dragon's long roar, the dragon roar to the sky. That mysterious ancient force, finally completely awakened. The huge stone chamber was completely enveloped by the intense fire, the darkness was completely expelled, not a trace of darkness could be found. This light far surpassed any light in the world, even made one feel, even the scorching sun descending from the horizon, most likely would not be as bright. The once arrogant crimson fire beast, if compared to this, was like a firefly. Amidst this terrifying power, the hottest spot was undoubtedly the 8 ferocious deities' halos that were still rapidly rotating and flickering with strange halos. There, the flames which the beast deity had merged into became more and more intense. The sky was also filled with mysterious incantations. The heart of the flame, which was constantly expanding and contracting, was like a crimson egg that was incubating some kind of terrifying thing. As the surrounding temperature continued to rise rapidly, that ancient and mysterious place was gathering the power that had been lost for millions of years bit by bit and descending into this world once again. The expanding and contracting fire core, like an incubating crimson egg, containing some terrible thing, and following the rapid rise of the surrounding temperature, that ancient and mysterious place, bit by bit condensed the power that had been lost for thousands of years, once again descended into this world. There was no sweat, because every drop of sweat evaporated before it flowed out. In the raging flames, their red faces were reflected. Lu Sweki suddenly sensed something, looked at Ghostly. That man, without knowing when, held her hand. She did not have any shock, even in this sea of despair, facing that unknown mysterious force. In her palm, on her fingertips, warmth came. Once familiar, 10 years ago it was like this, that past time when they held hands tightly in the darkness. Ghostly moved, left the wall that the two of them were leaning against, stood in front of Lu Sweki, faint green light, in the middle flickering indistinctly golden light, flashed from his hand, forming a light wall, blocking in front of him. Immediately, the scorching heat lessened a lot, just that Ghostly's back trembled slightly, and then, he inhaled deeply. Suddenly, the hand in his palm gripped him tightly. From behind him, a light blue radiance appeared. At first, it seemed to be in conflict with the green light, but very quickly, the two rays of light merged into one, forming an even more powerful light wall, blocking the terrifying scarlet flame's firelight. The man's shoulder, the man's back, quietly stood before her. Lu Sweki clenched her hand tightly, the corner of her mouth, in that sky full of fire, a faint smile. Suddenly, that long incantation stopped, for that moment as if everything froze, all the fire, the sky full of fire, Ghostly and Lu Sweki struggling to resist, and also that 8 ferocious deities rotating incessantly in the air. The deepest part of the hottest flame slowly split open. From a thin crack, it slowly grew bigger. From a crack about the size of a person, it became a hole that was several times larger. In the dazzling flame that filled the sky, that crack seemed to be the deepest darkness that could not be imagined. Then, something seemed to be staring coldly at the world outside from the depths of the crack. A ferocious despair that could make one go mad, instantly swept through every corner of this stone chamber. In the next moment, as if it had received the craziest stimulation, all the flames instantly burst forth with the most intense light. The dragon's roar rose higher and higher, like a never-ending carnival. In the depths of the flames, the dragon's roar rumbled, bringing with it terror, bringing with it despair. That ancient deity had descended from another world. The huge head, slowly stretched out, as dazzling as the scorching sun and unable to look directly at it, that was clearly a huge ancient fire dragon bathed in the fire. Every place was fire. The huge dragon head seemed to have occupied the entire space. Ghostly and Lu Sweki dumbfoundedly looked at this insufferably arrogant, almost surpassing the existence of this world, even forgot to resist, only relying on their instincts. Both of their magical weapons struggled to resist the surging fire. Just that suffocating might seemed to have announced their fate. 8 Wilderness Fire Dragon. Southern Border Ancient Shaman Tribes Legend, the terrible ferocious beast that destroyed everything in the world, the ultimate summoned creature of the 8 ferocious Inferno formation, finally after thousands of years, reappeared in the world. The huge dragon head, slowly turning in the fire, did not immediately destroy anything. It was surrounded by the fire, from its huge horns to the fangs in its mouth. All showed a mysterious red and transparent color that could only be seen in extremely high temperature. Every deep breath of the huge dragon caused the entire stone chamber to shake violently, as if this space, to such a powerful creature, was only a narrow space. Even its body, until now, had not come out. Behind the dragon head, that rotating 8 ferocious deities' halo seemed to be hidden in the dazzling light of the fire dragon. In the indistinct, that huge halo also seemed to be trembling slightly. Was it because of the fire dragon's despairing power? Or was it the memories from long ago when it was possessed? No one knew. No one thought about that anymore, because at this moment the huge fire dragon seemed to be slowly getting used to the strange feeling it had after waking up. On the dragon's head, in its red and transparent eye sockets, the raging flames slowly rose, and the dragon's head also slowly turned. After a while, this terrifying dragon head faced the stone chamber, the two figures who were struggling to resist in the corner. Roar! Instantly, a huge roar resounded through the entire world. Chapter 405. That roar seemed to come from far away, because in the sky full of roaring heat waves of flames, the terrifying 8 wilderness fire dragons' roar sounded rather far away, and what Ghostly and Lu Sweki were facing directly was the raging billows of huge flames, and the once solid ground beneath their feet right now had completely collapsed into a lava hell. Countless huge cracks cracked, scarlet-red lava roared and surged beneath their feet, like waves splashing, hitting onto the remaining charred rocks, incessantly burning, making hissing sounds. The rolling flames covered the sky and earth, in a blink had already arrived before them. In this despairing atmosphere, it was as if they could not breathe. His face, which was reflected red, veins seemed to flash on Ghostly's forehead. In front of that huge billow, his eyes widened. With a loud shout, the soul-devouring stick left his hand, floated in the air before him. At the same time, Ghostly's hands formed a seal similar to the Buddhism seal, but what floated from his palms was not the usual solemn golden light of Tian En Temple Buddhism true way. Instead it carried a trace of strange dark red light. Under the urging of his power, the soul-devouring stick abruptly stood up, standing vertically in the void, the sinister orb at the top, following Ghostly's hand seal forming, the Buddhism golden incantation floated up. And in between Ghostly's chest and the soul-devouring stick, the air in the void seemed to slowly distort, slowly congealing into a Taiji diagram. And in this Taiji diagram, what glimmered was not Qing Yun sect Taoism true way clear light, but mixed with various evil sect strange skills. The few most powerful cultivation skills in the world, finally for the first time, at the same time, mastered and unleashed by one person. Under the residual light of the scarlet flames, Lu Sweki quietly stood behind Ghostly, staring at this man who was doing his best, together with him, facing that terrible fire dragon. Tianya faint blue light, emitted from behind Ghostly. Her beautiful hair, in the billowing billow wind, fluttered. The next moment, the scorching flames crashed over. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had been engulfed in flames. It was as if he was placed in a furnace, suffering the pain of purgatory. Endless crimson flames roared in his ears, as if there were countless hands pulling at his body from all directions, wanting to tear him into pieces. His entire body trembled. However, in the raging sea of flames, there was still a strange light, after being submerged, tenaciously, struggled and flashed out in the sea of flames. Soul-devouring! Gold, green, red, 3 colors of light, at the soul-devouring stick, emitted an invisible wall, protecting its master in this doomsday-like crazy sea. Like a miracle, this attack from the 8 wildlands fire dragon, which should have destroyed everything, was blocked by Ghostly. Even the monkey Xiao Hui, who was still lying on Ghostly's shoulder, flashed its 3 blood-red ferocious eyes and roared at the fire dragon. Just that Ghostly was obviously not feeling well. His face that was once red from the flames, instantly turned pale, without a trace of blood. Lu Sweki, who was standing behind him, immediately felt Ghostly's body trembling, hurriedly supported him. Just that when she stretched out her hand to touch him, she was already shocked. Ghostly's entire body was abnormally scorching hot. Even Lu Sweki, this kind of cultivator, also felt a burning pain in her palm, not to mention Ghostly himself. What was even more shocking was, when Lu Sweki held Ghostly's hands, she immediately felt, although Ghostly was still maintaining his defensive posture, but both his hands and arms involuntarily trembled. The power of this blow was so terrifying. However, this attack was futile. The 8 wildlands fire dragon in front of them shook its head slightly, as if it was surprised. In the midst of the red flames that burned like a mountain, the dragon slowly lowered its head. It did not immediately launch another attack. Instead, it looked at the 2 tiny humans. In the dragon eyes, there was that unique red transparent flame. Zheng! A clear phoenix cry, blue light flashed, Tianya flipped out from Lu Swecky's hand, reflecting that figure, stepped forward, shielding ghostly behind her, inhaling deeply, resolutely facing that terrifying existence. Black hair, still fluttering in the wind. A few strands of hair, gently fluttering in the heat wave, landed on Ghost Lee's face. Even in this purgatory like doomsday, that once familiar faint fragrance, still wafted into his heart. When you are in despair, is there anyone who can accompany you? Even when there is no way out, is there anyone who has not given up? That gaze in that instant seemed to pass through time, forgetting the surrounding burning flames, seeing the past when he was young. The memories in the dark abyss seemed to be the same as today, like once again returning to that innocent time. So, this figure really had never changed? Then the person who changed, who was it? Behind the 8 wilderness fire dragons' head, that rotating mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halo, suddenly started to flicker, all kinds of strange symbols faintly discernible under the halo flashed incessantly. The 8 wilderness fire dragons' head suddenly stopped, as powerful as it was, it seemed to be urged by something, once again let out a roar. That dragon roar, like a tsunami, surged over, in that instant, all of the remaining rocks on the ground, in the violent tremors, rapidly melted into lava. In just a moment, under Ghostly and Lu Swecky's feet, was a scorching sea of lava. And following the 8 wilderness fire dragons' long roar, that sea of lava, from its original disorderly surging, in a blink of an eye, as if being pulled by a huge force, started to flow rapidly towards the same direction. The lava current surged faster and faster, the scorching gas rising up, turning this stone room into a real lava hell. Very soon, the 2 huge force pulled out a huge whirlpool in this sea of lava. The scarlet flame that could destroy everything burned fiercely, like a high-tide carnival dance. The whirlpool became bigger and bigger, sinking deeper and deeper. The roar that was pulled by the rushing torrent slowly came from the depths of the whirlpool, like thunder, gradually becoming louder and louder. In the end, it was deafening, even overshadowing the roar of the 8 wilderness fire dragon in midair. When the rapidly spinning lava had almost reached the point of madness, that huge whirlpool, which was several feet wide, came from deep within the whirlpool, accompanied by a deafening roar. Boom! In an instant, the sky and earth shook. From the huge whirlpool shot out a blazing pillar, completely made of lava, as thick as 10 people hugging together, with unparalleled power, rushing towards Lu Swecky and Ghostly, who seemed so weak and insignificant compared to it. Sweeping everything, looking down on the world, as if this was the true unparalleled power. The power of fire, the essence of fire. Before the lava pillar arrived, Lu Swecky and Ghostly even felt that their bodies were empty. Just a moment ago, the last corner of the stone wall that they were leaning on, under the crazy torment of the power, turned into rubble and scattered, and what appeared behind them was not a sturdier stone wall, it was actually gradually cracking and revealing the scarlet lava, slowly melting the rocks. And above them was the 8 wilderness fire dragon, surrounding them was a sea of crazily burning fire. Under their feet was the irresistible lava pillar rushing towards them. In the fire, in the panting, what was it that was trembling slightly? What was it that made their hands hold, unwilling to let go, tightly connected? That soared like a distant singing from the horizon, with a faint blue light, from 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years ago, all the way until today, for the one she loved, stabbed forward. Wind and fire roared. She was like a fairy who threw herself into the fire, her white figure suddenly bloomed in the fire, such a bright and unparalleled beauty, forgetting everything in the world, only the edge of her hand, that never-forgotten gentleness and firmness, accompanied her. What was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? That sword. Her figure moved forward, dancing in the wind, with a peerless grace. Behind her was a low chanting, the once ordinary fire stick, now the soul-devouring stick, came from behind, glimmering with green light, caught up with Tianya, flying at the same time with the blue sword. That figure was beside her, in this despairing sea of fire, tightly clinging to each other. Tianya's celestial sword trembled slightly, the brilliance on the sword blade pierced through the innumerable heat waves and winds, as if reflecting. The soul devouring which was traveling with it also made a strange, sharp cry. Green light flourished. Green, blue, two colors in the surrounding sea of fire, descended from the sky. Not only did it not evade, instead it charged towards that unstoppable lava pillar which soared up to the sky, pierced. What was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? The fire dragon in the air suddenly roared. The dragon's long roar rumbled out unceasingly. The surrounding flames instantly surged up, as if in the midst of a wild dance, watching this end of the world carnival. That two figures that seemed to have merged into one, melted in the entanglement of the green and blue light, like a meteor resolutely descended, collided with the lava pillar. What kind of brilliance was that? Like an enormous scarlet flower blossoming with a loud rumble, all of the lava sea instantly boiled and splashed up, charged up high into the air. The enormous fire pillar seemed to be wreaking havoc in this already extremely narrow place, burning everything that could be burned. Just that brilliant brilliance shot straight into the fire pillar. After a moment, but also like a long time froze. Who would know? The surging lava slowly descended, the rapidly spinning lava slowly slowed down, the enormous vortex started to shrink. Only that terrible fire pillar seemed to be still in the air above the lava sea, for that moment. A stream of green and blue light suddenly pierced a hole on the side of the fire pillar, shot out, the next moment, as if accompanied by deep muffled sounds, duo sounds, innumerable tiny holes continuously emerged. The green and blue light unceasingly spurted out. The next moment, a rumble, the enormous lava pillar collapsed, once again turned into scorching lava, fell into the lava sea below. In the air, Ghostly and Lu Swecky's figures reappeared. Their clothes were charred and torn, and there were even wounds on their skin in some places. Their faces, unspeakable weariness, Ghostly's chest and the corner of his mouth, were already dyed red with fresh blood. Just that, they were hugging each other, although weak, although they knew it was hopeless, but the magical weapons in their hands, Tianya and soul-absorbing stick, were emitting an unprecedented brilliant brilliance that could not be looked at directly. Their hands were still holding each other. Their bodies slowly rose into the air, once again, stood before the 8 wilderness fire dragons' enormous dragon head. 2 insignificant people, facing each other, stood silently. The 8 wilderness fire dragons' burning eyes watched this pair of man and woman. From that mysterious, unfathomable flame, it was impossible to tell the fire dragon's inner thoughts, or perhaps, with its tyrannical existence, why would it care about human emotions? That mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos, right now seemed to have dimmed a lot. For some reason, behind this enormous dragon's head, even these 8 ferocious deities seemed to be strenuous. Perhaps, to master a stronger power, the price to pay should also be higher. Chapter 406. From the ancient sorcerer tribe until now, how many people understood this? The 8 ferocious deities were flickering with light, and mysterious symbols were constantly flashing on them as they slowly rotated. The 8 Fields fire dragon did not attack immediately, as if it was waiting for something. Ghostly's body, from the pain he had been enduring, finally began to tremble uncontrollably. The bloody mark on his chest grew bigger and bigger. Lu Swecky silently reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist, pulling him closer to her body. That familiar panting sound echoed softly in her ears, carrying with it a slight heat, reverberating on the edge of her pale face. It must be a little itchy. She suddenly thought so. Then, she gently turned her head, looking at him. What she saw was Ghostly looking at her. She nodded slowly, smiling softly. Ghostly stared at her for a long time. The corner of his mouth, finally, revealed a faint smile, tinged with blood. The 8 ferocious deities suddenly lit up again, and this time, besides the 8 ferocious deities, the ball of flame within the halo of the 8 ferocious deities, which had merged with the beast deity's body, also became incomparably bright for the first time, gradually overshadowing the surrounding deities. And for the first time, the entire rotating halo left the back of the 8 Fields Fire Dragon's head, slowly sinking. The ball of raging flame, following the movement of the halo, suddenly descended on the head of the 8 Fields Fire Dragon, slowly merging with it. The huge 8 Fields Fire Dragon suddenly let out a furious roar, and in an instant, the entire sea of fire seemed to tremble slightly. What was it that could actually cause such a powerful creature to feel pain? That ball of flame, slowly but unstoppably, merged into the 8 Fields Fire Dragon's head. Then, the 8 ferocious deities, which were flickering with mysterious symbols, suddenly seemed to lose their luster, and once again rapidly dimmed. The 8 Fields Fire Dragon stopped roaring, as if lowering its head slightly. After a moment, the huge dragon head slowly lifted up again, that despairing aura of destruction, once again enveloping Ghostly and Lu Sweki. But this time, for some reason, not only was there no terrifying scene like the previous 2 attacks, but instead, the surrounding temperature dropped significantly. Although the sea of lava under their feet was still blazing hot, the flow of the lava had also slowed down. The entire infernal inferno seemed to suddenly, as if the essence of the heat was rapidly being extracted. The 8 Wildlands Fire Dragon finally looked at the 2 figures again. This time, its eyes were no longer burning with the mysterious red and transparent flames. Instead, it was a pair of eyes filled with the complex and crazy emotions of a human. The dragon lifted its head and opened its mouth to the sky. It seemed to be taking a deep breath. Following that movement, all the flames burning in the air seemed to have lost their light, but the pressure that enveloped Ghostly and Anan made them want to give up in despair. Suddenly, a beam of light flashed out of the 8 Wildlands Fire Dragon's mouth. It wasn't the light of a blazing flame, but pure flames. There was no impurities, no noise. This was the most terrifying and the world's most terrifying, the fire. Slowly spat out. There was not a trace of heat leaking out, only a fire pillar the size of a human, as pure as jade, flew towards Ghostly and Lu Sweki. The Tianya in Lu Sweki's hand slowly drooped down, the soul-devouring stick beside it also slowly returned to Ghostly's hand. The green-blue light slowly faded. There was no human power that could resist this irresistible pure flame. That flame, bit by bit, neared. Lu Sweki quietly looked up, but was no longer looking there. Right now in her eyes there was only one figure, only that face. She stared deeply, a faint smile hanging on her lips, not willing to let go of a single bit, as if to carve it in her heart, into her soul, until thousands of years later, she would never be able to forget it. That flame was already nearing. Ghostly's sleeve, suddenly without any warning, instantly turned into gray powder, dispersed, and then his entire arm of clothing. And this arm, this body, how much more time did it have? Just that, he faintly thought, was he going to die just like that? Just that, his wish in the end could not be fulfilled. He laughed bitterly in a low voice, clenched tightly, was that soft and gentle palm. Suddenly, that flickering flame, like a meteor bursting out, a dot of flame, suddenly flashed past his mind, in an instant chaos. Lu Sweki immediately felt something was wrong with Ghostly, subconsciously pulled his palm, and almost at the same time, that pure fire had already reached them, looked like it was about to engulf their bodies. Die. Or live. Ghostly at that moment suddenly shouted, pulled hard, abruptly pulled Lu Sweki's body behind him. Lu Sweki screamed but had no intention of escaping alone, instead grabbed Ghostly's hand even tighter. And in that instant, in Ghostly's palm, suddenly appeared a jade-like yet not jade plate, surrounded by a circle of green jade, in the middle an ancient flame pattern. It was the Inferno Mirror. The next moment, the pure fire shot onto the Inferno Mirror. The 8 ferocious deities in the distance suddenly shook, and the enormous tyrannical 8 Wilderness Fire Dragon, its terrifying dragon head also suddenly paused. Everything seemed to suddenly stop. Then, like a voice from the netherworld, gentle and soothing chanting, leisurely reverberated, like thousands of years ago, that gentle and exquisite girl. The inferno mirror lit up, that simple and unadorned fire picture in the middle, seemed to be reborn, under the burning of the pure fire, as if it was injected with endless vitality, greedily absorbing the world's purest fire essence. Ah! Suddenly, Ghostly made a light cry. That inferno mirror was already so hot that he could no longer hold it. The inferno mirror that left his hand did not fall down, instead slowly rose into the air, under the 8 wilderness fire dragons' gaze, slowly flashed. The blazing hot air slowly emitted from the inferno mirror, bringing with it some dreamy white smoke, as if the surrounding air had vaporized, condensed around the inferno mirror, a huge mysterious force, slowly tearing the surrounding space. In the white illusory smoke, slowly condensed into a beautiful girl's figure. That was a girl dressed in simple and unadorned clothes, holding a staff in her hand, and her face was exactly the same as the Linglong witch statue guarding outside the subdued devil ancient cave. Linglong, like a heart-wrenching cry of despair, the 8 wilderness fire dragon once again revealed a pained expression, and then that ball of flame slowly separated from the dragon's head, and then the fire dissipated, revealing the beast deity's real body. Just that, looking at it now, the beast deity's entire body was withered, like a lamp at the end of its oil. Just that pair of fervent eyes, for thousands of years had never changed. He had forgotten everything in the world, only that girl in the smoke in his eyes. He pounced towards that illusion, his eyes filled with incomparable satisfaction. The inferno mirror silently spun, that Linglong illusion also seemed to be smiling, opened her arms, hugging him. Seeing that, they were about to embrace each other, but behind the beast deity, suddenly, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The 8 wilderness fire dragon, who had lost its prohibition, at first glance recognized the enemy, the body that he had destroyed, made it instinctively attack. Taking a deep breath, the dragon's breath lingered. Ghostly and Lu Swecky's countenance changed at the same time, but the beast deity seemed to have long forgotten everything around him, or, even if he knew, why would he care? He pounced over. In that smoke, it was not an illusion, he actually really hugged that body. Linglong, Linglong, he softly called, like a child, closed his eyes in satisfaction. Linglong smiled, used her hand to gently stroke his hair. The huge dragon roared, the angry flame instantly arrived, engulfed everything. Those 2 figures in the sea of fire slowly disappeared, but there was not the slightest sorrow. Instead, what slowly emerged was that strange happiness. In the fire, the inferno mirror suddenly flashed, fell straight down from the air, landed beside Ghostly's hand. In shock, Ghostly subconsciously stretched out his hand to catch it, and at the same time, where the tyrannical 8 wilderness fire dragon was, suddenly seemed to lose the support of some kind of power. That huge crack started to slowly shrink. The 8 wilderness fire dragon again made an angry roar, filled with unwillingness, but with its tyrannical strength, it seemed to be unable to stop its huge head from being engulfed by that mysterious space again. Just that, at the last moment, filled with hatred to destroy everything, towards this space, it spat out its last terrifying fire. The sky fell and the earth cracked. In that instant, all of the lava boiled and exploded, the stone walls completely melted, the huge space collapsed like sand. At the same time, innumerable streams of lava shot out in all directions. Ghostly and Lu Swecky looked dejectedly at this doomsday scene, but had no more strength to escape. But at this moment, the inferno mirror suddenly emitted a pure and gentle halo, enveloped the 2 of them, wrapped them in a light screen, swiftly rose up. And below them, everything turned into flames. The entire vast and boundless 10,000 great mountains, countless mountain ranges, seemed to at that moment heard that crazy roar. The scorched black mountain peaks that had stood for thousands of years in the raging lava gradually collapsed, and the scorching lava that shot up to the sky pierced the horizon. At the foot of this fire-like doomsday world, at the entrance of the subdued devil-ancient cave, Heimu was stunned and at a loss, and the ferocious black tiger instead laughed crazily, loudly shouted, it's here, this day has finally come." Heimu stared with wide eyes, angrily shouted, "Are you crazy?" The black tiger laughed crazily, but suddenly stopped. Both of their bodies shook violently at the same time, and then, in front of them, that Ling-Long witch statue that had guarded this subdued devil-ancient cave for thousands of years, suddenly shattered, scattered into innumerable small pieces, and then engulfed by the surging heat wave, disappeared without a trace. The black tiger howled to the sky like a madman, "Lady, lady, wait for me, I'm coming!" And at its feet, Heimu's heavy and intense panting, suddenly he loudly said, "No, no, I can't be like this, I still have unfinished business." Speaking, he suddenly turned, like flying, flashed out, leaving this place that was about to be destroyed. The black tiger seemed to not care about Heimu's departure. His huge body guarded the entrance of the subdued devil-ancient cave, laughing crazily to the sky. Very quickly, the innumerable collapsed rocks and crazily splashing lava swallowed his figure. The earth also seemed to tremble, innumerable ferocious beasts and birds panicked, that towering mountain peak, in the deafening roar, in the black dust that covered the sky and covered the sun, collapsed with a loud crash. The firmament in the sky slowly started to rain. Fire rain. In the 10,000 great mountains, it rained for 3 days and 3 nights. Thousands of years later, who would still remember that past? Chapter 407. Fenxiang Valley. In the majestic mountain river hall, right now it was silent, other than Li Sun and the other elite disciples who had entered that mysterious 10,000 great mountains. Most of the Fenxiang Valley disciples were either patrolling in the valley or staying in their own rooms to practice and study. Rarely would they come to Fenxiang Valley main hall. This was also the most deserted time of the day in the mountain river hall, except for late night. Just that at this moment there were 2 figures, standing at the entrance of the mountain river hall, silently standing, gazing towards the distant southern horizon. In the distant horizon, in the depths of the mysterious and dangerous Grand Myriad mountain range, there was an extremely enormous pillar of fire charging into the sky, and it brought along surging and roaring crimson-red lava and a thick layer of dark gray clouds with countless rock fragments mixed within it. It was sent high up into the sky by an enormous force, and then it sprayed out in all directions as if it had burst out. Even though it was far away, but they could still feel that enormous roar reverberating between heaven and earth. Even under their feet, they could faintly feel the earth trembling slightly. Thousands of miles away it was like that. Then deep in the 10,000 great mountains where it erupted, what kind of unimaginable scene would it be? No one knew, at least, the 2 people standing in the mountain river hall right now did not know. Yun Elan's face looked very cold. For a long time, he did not even speak a word, only silently watching that enormous fire pillar which although had erupted for a long time but did not show any signs of weakening. And the person standing behind him was his junior brother Shangguan-Su. Right now was also gazing at that enormous fire pillar, but his expression was much more complicated. The expression on his face also seemed uncertain. After a long time, in the silence, darkness quietly arrived, the sky gradually darkened. In between, a few disciples passed by but very quickly realized that the atmosphere was not right and quickly retreated. Till the end, as the last ray of light of the dusk gradually disappeared, even if one raised one's eyes and gazed afar, that strange scene in the distant horizon also slowly became blurry. Far away, in a corner of Fenxiang Valley, low cries of insects sounded, intermittent, sometimes near and sometimes far, not knowing what it was calling out to, but it set off the huge mountain river hall, the coldness like ice and snow. Yun Elan's body in the shadows moved and then slowly turned around. Shangguan-Su silently looked at him. Yun Elan's eyes met his for a moment and then for some reason, turned away, slowly turned and walked into the mountain river hall. Shang Guansu secretly sighed in his heart, took one last look at the southern horizon, also turned and walked in. The muffled sound of footsteps reverberated in the silent mountain river hall, yet it seemed so loud and clear. Whose heart did the heavy footsteps tread on? Yun Ilan sat on the seat in the middle of the great hall, slowly sat down. The sky was dark, but there were no lights here. Not that Fenxiang Valley disciples were lazy, just that this night seemed to be different. They all tactfully did not come. Yun Ilan sat in the darkness, his face looked blurry. After a long while, he suddenly said, "Can't believe there is really someone in this world who can destroy the subdued devil ancient cave, can kill that evildoer?" Shang Guansu sat down below Yun Ilan, although he was Yun Ilan's junior brother, but looking at his face, he looked much older than Yun Ilan, just that right now his voice seemed more normal than Yun Ilan, indifferently said, "That day Qing Yun sect Daoxian could seriously injure the beast deity. Now that someone can think of a way to kill the beast deity, it is not too surprising." Yun Ilan was silent for a long time, did not speak, but after a long while, he suddenly gave a bitter laugh, shook his head and said, "Man proposes but God disposes, 100 years of hard work, just like that, all in vain." Shang Guansu pondered for a moment, seemed to be secretly considering how to speak, slowly said, "Maybe there are other ways in the Fenxiang Jade Book." Yun Ilan snorted. Shang Guansu immediately shut up. The atmosphere turned slightly awkward, but Yun Ilan was obviously in a bad mood, did not have the slightest intention to ease the atmosphere, only sat there quietly, not making a sound. Shang Guansu's aged face, the wrinkles seemed to deepen in the darkness, his eyes glimmering with a complicated glint, but nobody knew what he was thinking. After a long while, Yun Ilan suddenly called out, "Shangguan Jr. brother." Shang Guansu was stunned, said, "What?" Yun Ilan indifferently said, "Others may not understand but our Fenxiang Valley's secret, only you and I are most clear. Why did our founder wanted to establish our sect in the southern border Fenxiang Valley, this desolate place, you should know right." Shang Guansu sighed, his voice carried a trace of vicissitudes, said, "It is because our founder discovered the ancient southern border shaman tribe's remains, Inferno Altar, and from there discovered the strange and powerful shaman secret." Yun Ilan slowly nodded, said, "That's right, it is because of that. Fenxiang Valley then took root and sprouted in the southern border desolate place, opened its doors and continued until today. The ancient shaman tribe's various mysterious shaman skills, in addition to the true skills passed down by our generations of founders, then we have our Fenxiang Valley today's status and prestige." Speaking to here, Yun Ilan's voice suddenly carried a trace of desolation, said, "But in these hundreds of years, even though the generations of ancestors exhausted their painstaking efforts, but among the southern border ancient shaman clan shaman spells, the strongest power heaven fire, we still only grasp the surface." His expression gradually became angry, said coldly, "That day when I inherited the Valley Master position, I made a solemn vow in front of our generations of founders, that we must discover the shaman tribe Heaven Fire's secret and let our Fenxiang Valley dominate the world, lead the masses. But I didn't expect that not only that, even the only key to explore the power of Heaven Fire, the 8 savage inferno formations map passed down by the shaman tribe, was destroyed. What's more, even the most important inferno mirror was lost." In the darkness, Shang Guansu's body suddenly shook. "Pa!" A crisp sound was heard from beside Yun Ilan. In his anger, his hand exerted strength and actually twisted the chair's armrest off. In the hall, it was silent for a moment. After a long while, Yun Ilan suddenly heaved a long sigh, slowly stood up, his tone desolate, said, "That day in the difficult situation, by chance from the southern border ancient books, I found out that other than the Inferno Altar, there is still that subdued devil ancient cave which still has a diagram, therefore I had to ask a tiger for its skin, today's matter, a pity ai." He let out a long sigh, an indescribable exhaustion on his face. Outside the desolate Shanhe Hall, other than the low cries of the insects, there were no other sounds, those Funxiang Valley disciples, most of them had peacefully fallen asleep. Who would know, in this kind of night, there were two old people quietly sitting in the Shanhe Hall? Yun Ilan seemed to be extremely unsettled today. His usual composure was nowhere to be seen. His thoughts revealed, appeared distraught, paced back and forth for quite a while, finally after a long sigh, shook his head with a bitter smile, did not say anything, quietly walked towards the rear hall. Shang Guansu sat at his spot and did not move, watching as Yun Ilan's figure was about to disappear into the dark rear hall. Shang Guansu's eyes suddenly flashed, as if in hesitation. He finally made a decision and stood up. "Senior brother." Yun Ilan paused, turned around, faintly said, "What is it?" Shang Guansu slowly, as if every word was carefully thought over, said, "I have carefully thought about it. This matter may still have hope." Yun Ilan's eyebrows raised, said, "What did you say?" Shang Guansu seemed to feel his mouth was dry. His throat moved, unhurriedly said, "Now the two known places that still have the 8 savage Inferno sect formation, Inferno Altar and Subdue Devil Ancient Cave, are already destroyed. If we want to delve into the mystery of heaven fire from this formation, I'm afraid the future is bleak." Yun Ilan snorted, said, "That's right, then what do you say?" Shang Guansu was silent for a moment, said, "I am thinking, the formation is a dead object, after this path is blocked, maybe we can start from the people." Yun Ilan was a little impatient, said, "What people, how would they know?" Suddenly, his eyes suddenly brightened, his expression turned solemn, after a moment of silence, slowly said, "You are saying after the Subdue Devil Ancient Cave collapsed, the southern border shaman tribe will still have survivors?" Shang Guansu inhaled deeply, as if a heavy burden was pressing on his chest, but after a moment, he still said, "I am not completely sure now, but according to my conjecture, after everything in the Subdued Devil Ancient Cave is annihilated, one of the few non-human non-demon shaman tribe survivors, I'm afraid one of them, might not be willing to perish together with them like this." Chapter 408. He slowly raised his head, his voice somehow bitter, said, "If I am not wrong, this person may survive. If so, this person will be the one in this world who knows the most about the ancient shaman tribe shaman skills. From him, we may be able to gain something, who knows." Yun Ilan silently pondered, but his expression slowly became cheerful and focused. After a long while, he suddenly nodded and said, "Not bad, junior brother, you are really insightful, although this matter does not have much hope, but it is better than despair. Since it is so, I will have to trouble you to make a trip to the 10,000 Great Mountains, mainly to investigate this matter, and at the same time to see how Sun and the rest are." This time he went. He met with great changes. It was not something that could be predicted. It has been hard on him. Shang Guansu silently sighed in his heart, stood up, nodded and said, "Yes." Yun Ilan glanced at him, suddenly smiled and said, "Junior brother, just now my mood was not good, maybe my tone was wrong, don't take it to heart." Shang Guansu shook his head, said, "Senior brother, what are you saying? I won't." Yun Ilan smiled and nodded, then turned and walked into the rear hall of the hall, disappearing into the shadows. In the huge mountain river hall, there was only a lonely shadow left, standing silently. The darkness quietly surged over, swallowing his figure. Southern border, 10,000 Great Mountains. The deafening roars that reverberated between heaven and earth, the volcano roars that shook the earth, finally after 3 days and 3 nights of crazy eruptions, slowly weakened. The doomsday-like rain of fire unknowingly stopped, just that on the countless mountains, rivers and earth, there were burn marks everywhere, gazing afar, as if there were still innumerable fireheads, burning on this miserable land. Just that, the black clouds in the horizon eventually dispersed, once again casting down a warm glow, illuminating this piece of land. Even though standing far away, the air was still filled with a trace of irritable sulfuric burnt smell, but at this time, the light breeze that blew down from the horizon had more of a fresh smell. Everything would eventually end. Everything seemed to be starting anew, the sun and moon revolved, shuttled back and forth, the stars moved, who had seen the vicissitudes of the world? The stars twinkled, the bright moon rising. The night wind blew gently, and the trees rustled. The tranquil night quietly descended upon this place. With a low moan, like a sleeping baby, she subconsciously stretched out her hand. What did she grab? It was warm skin and a stable place. It was right beside her, solid and never leaving. A faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, as if she had obtained some gratification from her dream. In the night, under the starlight, a light breeze blew quietly. Her hair was a little messy, and a few strands of black hair fluttered in the night wind, falling on her jade-like cheeks. She gently furrowed her eyebrows. Her expression was as innocent as a child's. It was so beautiful amidst the chaos, but it seemed to slowly seep into the depths of her soul. Ghostly silently stared at this sleeping face. She was just beside him, as if she had never been so close before. She slept quietly, breathing in the fresh night air of the southern border. As the wind blew, her chest rose and fell slowly, her lips curled into a slight smile. He suddenly raised his head and saw that the bright moon had moved to the middle of the sky, emitting a gentle and warm radiance that illuminated the world. The moonlight was like water, sprinkling on their bodies. Clothes like snow, people like jade. This was a cliff on the highest peak of the 10,000 great mountains, towering about 1 zhang above the mountain peak. Because it was far from the subdued devil ancient cave, the huge volcanic eruption caused by the collapse of the cave did not affect this place much. Only some of the flames from the rain of fire and some lava from the rubble ignited a few fires, but they all quickly subsided. And on the high cliff, one could still vaguely see the place where the madness happened, but only countless ashes remained. The two people in that desperate situation, after being rescued by the spiritual divine object Inferno Mirror, because they were too exhausted, they quickly fainted. And when Ghostly woke up again, he found himself and Lu Sweki on this cliff. After the hustle and bustle, it was a calm and cool night. Suddenly, a light exclamation was heard beside him. He turned his head to look. That beautiful girl in her sleep, after a faint smile, slowly opened her eyes. That pair of clear, gentle eyes that reflected his silhouette. Suddenly, as if heaven and earth had stopped, deep in his soul, a certain place quietly cracked. Then, after gazing deeply into his eyes, she smiled faintly, with a hint of shyness. That smile, like in the darkness of the night, a delicate and beautiful lily. For a long time, but also seemed to be a short moment, that time had lost its meaning, who would care? Ghostly also smiled, a gentle smile, that smile seemed to be that young man from that time. She stretched out her hand, wanting to hold his hand and never let go, but realized both of their hands were already held together, never separated. A faint blush flashed across her face. Slowly, she sat up. Her clothes slid down, it was Ghostly's coat covering her body. She glanced at Ghostly but did not say anything, just that at the corner of her lips, that quiet smile, seemed to deepen again. The night breeze blew gently, like a gentle hand brushing past the body. Far away, in the forest on the mountain peak, waves of rustling reverberated in the night. Lu Sweki looked around. Not far from them, at the edge of the cliff, Lu Sweki's Tianya celestial sword was inserted into the rocks. The sword blade, like autumn water, stood erect in the night breeze, and beside Tianya, Ghostly's soul-absorbing stick was also quietly lying on the ground. Two magical weapons, right now, seemed to be so quiet. Who knew what kind of past they had? The indistinct green light on the soul-absorbing stick glimmered, and Tianya's light blue light intertwined. This pair of magical weapons that had been entangled for thousands of years, right now looking at them, seemed to have some signs of complementing each other. Suddenly a low roar was heard from behind. The two of them turned around. Suddenly a huge figure flashed past from the depths of the forest. It was the evil beast Taotai that followed beside the beast deity that day. It sounded a little restless, but very soon, a familiar sound was heard. As if comforting it, after a moment, Taotai quietened down, no longer made a sound. The two of them turned and looked at each other. Ghostly hesitated slightly, said, "That is Tautai, I am here because of it. Tomorrow I should be." Suddenly, he didn't continue speaking, because at this time, a white and soft hand gently covered his mouth. He instantly turned silent. His body seemed to tremble slightly. The night breeze blew over faintly, brushing her hair. Her eyes, in such a night, seemed to be blurred. However, the smile at the corner of his mouth never disappeared. Lu Sweki only smiled, stared deeply at him. This man who had haunted her countless times in her dreams, after a long time, gently, quietly said, "Don't worry about tomorrow, all right?" The moonlight, like ice and snow, fell into the world. Ghostly stared at her in a daze, looking at her peerless face and gentle smile, looking at the persistence and faint sorrow behind that smile. The night breeze was still blowing, her hair draped over her shoulders, gently fluttering, and a faint fragrance drifted in the wind. Her figure, at this moment, was so frail but, that kind of beauty, as if the countless vicissitudes of the world had never been erased. "Don't worry about tomorrow, all right? Bright moon, innumerable stars." The night was boundless. He quietly held her hand, held it in his palm. Under the endless firmament, who would care about this world's tiny happiness? Her frail body seemed to tremble gently in the night breeze, secretly throbbing feelings, as if wandering in the long river of time for thousands of years. Above the horizon, was there someone smiling and looking afar? Was it joy? Was it pain? Never mind, what was tomorrow, what would be tomorrow, why care? Embrace into my arms. Hold you, embrace me gently in my arms. Chapter 409. Qingyun Hill, Small Bamboo Valley. The night was dark, the firmament like dark ink solidified, only indistinctly the thick dark clouds slowly moving in the sky. From that boundless darkness, rain fell silently. Further away in the horizon, thunder rumbled indistinctly, not knowing if there would be an even more violent storm coming soon. The Qingyun sect disciples who went to the southern border had already returned for several days. Among them Anan, after meeting the sect elders, returned to Small Bamboo Valley and never appeared again. Even the undercurrents caused by Reverend Daoxian and Tian Bai's mysterious disappearance in Qingyun's sect, as if she did not notice. The precipitous and beautiful Small Bamboo Valley was still as tranquil as it had been for thousands of years. The tall bamboos all over the mountains and plains, in this stormy night, were still making low rustling sounds, silently watching the people at the top of the hill. The green lantern in the small house, the candlelight glowing. The door was gently closed, the window was still half open, the mountain storm came quietly, raindrops flew into the house from time to time, wetting the bamboo windowsill, slowly condensed into water droplets, quietly slid down, leaving trails of watermarks. The wind blowing from afar gently shook the window in this silent rainy night, emitting a soft zhiyo sound. The candlelight placed on the table in the house swayed, flickering. Several times it looked like it was going to be blown out, but always in the struggle, persevered until the mountain wind weakened, slowly regained its brightness, once again brightened. In the night there was no other light. Places slightly far from this little candle were shrouded in shadows. Lu Sweki sat under the lamp, silently looking at the candle flame. Green lantern beauty in such a night seemed to congeal into an unshakable melancholy, silently engraved in time, but not knowing how much time could be retained. Outside the door, light footsteps sounded from afar. Anan's head moved slightly. A gust of mountain breeze blew in from the window. The candle on the table swayed and wavered, her beautiful hair also gently fluttered with the wind. The door emitted a low sound, was pushed open. The wind and rain outside the house suddenly became louder, as if the wind suddenly became stronger and was about to rush into the house. Fortunately, after that moment, the person had already entered the house, turned around and closed the door, also cutting off the wind and rain outside the house, returning peace to the house. Lu Sweki stood up, slightly lowered her head, said, "Senior sister, why are you here?" It was Wen Min. She glanced at Lu Sweki. walked to the table, sighed and said, "Ever since you returned to the mountain, it's rare to see you out of this room. If I don't come to see you, I'm afraid I don't even know how you are now." Lu Sweki looked up at Wenmin, saw Senior Sister with a smile on her lips, her eyes gentle, clearly full of concern. She chuckled and said, "How could anything happen to me? Thank you for your concern, Senior Sister." Wenmin looked at her for a long time, saw that other than Lu Sweki's face slightly pale, her expression was normal. She then slowly relaxed and said, "Junior sister, it's good that you are fine, but as an elder sister, seeing you like this, my heart is really distressed. Besides that, after you returned to the mountain, you only saw Master once that day, and then you shut yourself in this small house and never went to see her again. No matter what, you can't blame Master in your heart. After all, we were all raised by her." Lu Sweki shook her head, said, "Senior sister, what are you saying? I definitely do not dare to have the slightest intention to blame teacher. I did not dare to pay my respects to teacher. It is only because I know I am unworthy, afraid to make teacher angry and upset." When Min was stunned, looked at Lu Sweki. After a long time, her expression was complicated, her words stopped, only sighed softly and stood up. At this moment in the distant horizon, suddenly a flash of lightning streaked across, followed by a sound of thunder, abruptly sounded, the sound like tearing silk but seemed to reverberate above their heads. The echo lingered in spirals, lingering for a long time. Outside the house, the wind seemed to be getting stronger. When Min frowned, walked to the window, looked out and said, "Look at the sky, it seems the rain is going to get heavier." Lu Sweki stood up, also slowly walked to the window, stood beside Wenmin, looked out. In the night, two slender figures stood side by side, watching the heavy night and the endless wind and rain. Far away, rustling bamboo leaves, the sound of rain hitting bamboo leaves, was faintly heard. For a moment, not knowing if it was quiet, in this silence, both of them were speechless. After a long time, Wenmin inhaled deeply, smiled and said, "Speaking of which, we have not watched the rain together for a long time, right?" Lu Sweki's lips revealed a trace of a smile, said, "Yes, actually I also remember, when I came up the mountain as a child. At the beginning it was Senior Sister who took care of me. At that time I was not sensible, every night there was a storm, when the thunder roared, I was especially afraid." She slowly turned her head, her eyes filled with gentleness, quietly said, "Every time it was Senior Sister you who brought me, sat by the window watching the rain and told me not to be afraid." When Min shook her head and laughed, stretched out her hand and gently caressed Lu Sweki's soft long hair on her shoulder, suddenly sighed and said, "In a blink of an eye, you have already grown up." Lu Sweki felt Wenmin's palm, gently patted on her shoulder, as if from there was some warmth. After a moment of silence, Lu Sweki looked at her senior sister, said, "Senior sister, if you have anything to say, just say it to me." Wenmin was stunned for a moment, in the end smiled bitterly and said, "I know you have always been exceptionally intelligent, nothing can be hidden from you." She paused for a moment, said, "Junior sister, actually with your intelligence, far surpasses me this elder sister, but why can't you see through it, can't comprehend it, in vain suffering in your heart?" The smile on Lu Sweki's lips slowly disappeared, replacing it, was a familiar indifferent expression, just that, facing Wenmin, she no longer had that cold feeling. "I am not suffering." Lu Sweki stared at the night sky outside the window, quietly said. When Min looked over in shock, Lu Sweki's eyes drifted far away, not knowing where she was looking at in this deep night, but her tone could not be clearer. "I have never suffered, senior sister. Ever since the sect preached, it is for us to have no worries, to be at ease, to comprehend creation, to seek immortality, isn't it?" When Min nodded, said, "That's right, actually in terms of cultivation, our Taoist and Buddhist sect have some similarities." Lu Sweki gently held onto the bamboo sill, a gust of cold wind blew over, she seemed to feel cold, her body shrank a little but she still stood, on her fair palms, very quickly crystal clear water droplets condensed. But what do I want immortality for? Wenmin slightly opened her mouth, her brows frowning. I know, for thousands of years in Qing Yun's sect, these teachings passed down by the founders, definitely will not be wrong. Us mortals wish to escape reincarnation. Through cultivation, perhaps we can achieve immortality. In the past, I also thought so wholeheartedly cultivated. Just that now. Lu Sweki quietly smiled, as if speaking to her own heart, said, if I am to be heartless and loveless for the rest of my life, to have a heart like a blank piece of paper and ascend to immortality, then this kind of immortality, how can it be what I want? Wenmin stammered, Junior sister, what exactly are you saying? As if she did not hear Wenmin's words, Lu Sweki continued, I know what you are thinking in your heart, senior sister. Most likely you are scolding me for not understanding the ways of the world, not knowing the hardships and dangers of this world. What I wish for in my heart, most of it will be difficult to have an outcome. Actually, how would I not know? If talking about suffering in the heart, I have indeed suffered because of this. Just that now I have thought it through. Others say that the world cannot tolerate unforgivable, and I ultimately cannot be like him, break away from home and become a monk. But even so, I only wish that there is one person in my heart that I can yearn for, and I also know, he also has me in his heart. As long as it is like this, I am also satisfied. Wenmin snorted, said, don't you know, in the end there will not be an outcome? Don't tell me you don't care about this? Lu Sweki's face, for the first time, changed expression, as if that deep gloom quietly flashed past. After a long while, she then quietly said, of course I care, if it is possible. Who does not wish to be together forever? Who does not wish to be together forever? Just that I know it will be difficult to achieve, so I will not think about it. Anyway, what will happen in the future, who knows? I will not be willing to forget. Wenmin looked deeply at this elegant lady in front of her. In the night, she was as beautiful and elegant as a lily, blooming in loneliness. She sighed softly, said, anyway, I already knew I would not be able to persuade you. Tomorrow morning, you can go and see teacher. Lu Sweki was surprised, turned her head, said, although it is not that I am unwilling to pay my respects to teacher, but if I go, most likely I will make her angry again. Wenmin shook her head and said, today it is teacher who privately asked me to come and call you. It is for official matters, don't worry. Lu Sweki hesitated for a moment, said, the southern border trip, the beast deity is dead, the good faction's greatest threat is gone, what else is there? Wenmin hesitated for a moment, said, it is the evil faction's resurgence. Lu Sweki's body shook. At the same time a complicated and incomprehensible look flashed in her eyes, said, what? Seeing Lu Sweki's unusual expression, Wenmin sighed in her heart, but her mouth still calmly said, recently rumors have been spreading, the evil faction traitors who were defeated by the beast deity in the beast deity calamity actually still have remnants and seem to have the intention to make a comeback. And our Qing Yun sect is currently facing internal and external troubles. Teacher seems to be deeply worried. You know she has always valued you the most likely because of this matter she called you over. Lu Sweki was silent for a long time, nodded and said, yes, then I will go and pay my respects to teacher tomorrow morning. Chapter 410. Wenmin nodded, said, then you should also rest early, I am leaving. Lu Sweki did not stay any longer, sent her to the door. Wenmin suddenly paused, turned and looked at Lu Sweki, said, junior sister, in future if you have any problems, don't keep it in your heart. If you trust me as your sister, just tell me, it is better than keeping it in your heart. Lu Sweki slowly nodded, quietly said, yes, senior sister, I know. Wenmin looked at her expression, expected that although she agreed but with Lu Sweki's character, most likely even if she had any difficulties, she would not say it. She could only laugh bitterly, turned and left. Leaning on the door, she watched Wenmin leave. Lu Sweki slowly looked away, saw the night as dark as ink, wind and rain howling, heaven and earth silent, as if revealing a sense of desolation. For a moment she was in a daze. After a long time, as if she woke up from a dream, quietly turned and gently closed the door. Heaven and earth, wind and rain, were also shut outside. Just like what Qing Yun's sect had secretly received, 1,000 miles away at majestic Fox Mountain, the once deserted mountain, suddenly became bustling with noise and excitement. Large batches of evil sect disciples returned to Ghost King's sect, the once sealed mechanisms were activated, the abandoned sentry posts, under the orderly command, were restored one by one. On a sunny day, the last branch of the evil sect, also the most powerful branch at the moment, Ghost King's sect, under the leadership of Ghost King, returned to the Central Plains. Big and small parcels, an endless long queue, like a group of ants returning to their nest, and in this queue, the most eye-catching was every few zhongs, there were hundreds of evil faction disciples escorting a huge object, covered with thick gray cloth, forming a huge square shape, and under the cloth, from time to time a shocking deep roar was heard. The roar was filled with ferocity and anger, but for some reason, most of the roars sounded weak, as if it was some kind of extremely exhausted monster. This huge mysterious object very soon was transported by these evil sect disciples, who seemed to be familiar with the route, into the huge cave that Ghost King's sect had been managing for generations. In the air, only the low echoes of the unknown monster's cries and howls. At the same time, in the wind, for some reason, a strange stench of blood gradually rose from the surroundings, drifted in the wind. Ghost King clasped his hands behind, stood at the side of the cave, watching the last mysterious giant being transported into the depths of the cave, his face expressionless. At a glance, he seemed to have not changed at all, other than the hair on his temples, which had turned white because of his daughter, had grown more. Behind him stood two figures. One was Yuji, still in that black veil mask, silent, the other was shrouded in black shadows. It was Mr. Ghost. When almost all the evil faction disciples had entered this cave, very soon a few of them ran up and reported to Ghost King in a low voice. Ghost King listened in silence and did not say anything, only nodded his head slowly. Those evil faction disciples quickly dispersed. Under the silent command, the huge stone mechanism at the cave entrance slowly fell down, blocking the light from the outside world outside. Ghost King in the darkness gently exhaled. This familiar cave smell. In the deep and serene cave tunnel, light slowly lit up. That was the evil sect disciples one by one lighting the torches hanging above the tunnel. Under the familiar faint yellow light, the shadows also started to waver. Behind, Yuji slowly stepped forward, softly said, "Sect head, do you want to go and see Ghostly?" Ghost King's eyes seemed to flash, said, "After I returned, I have not seen him. Where is he?" Yuji quietly said, "He has always been at Baiyao's place." Ghost King, who was about to stride forward, paused for a moment. After a moment said, "I will go over, all of you do not need to follow." Yuji acknowledged, watched Ghost King walking into the distance, until that figure disappeared. She turned back and was shocked. That mysterious figure beside her had unknowingly disappeared. Under the black veil, Yuji's willowy brows slowly frowned, her eyes glinting with a complicated expression. Outside the cold stone chamber deep in the mountain cave, the bustling scene was completely different from the outside. There was no clamor here. It was still as quiet as before. Maybe in some people's eyes, this place should be more of loneliness. Ghost King stood outside the cold stone chamber for a long time, facing that stone door. For some reason he did not stretch out his hand to open it. The heavy stone door was in front of him, but his gaze seemed to have penetrated this indestructible stone. Behind the stone door, where the cold air was thick, his daughter was still lying peacefully? Such a strong person like him, would there also be a moment of weakness, unwilling to face his own daughter? Not knowing how long time quietly passed, Ghost King's body moved, slowly stretched out his hand, activated the mechanism. A deep rumble was heard. The stone door in front of him slowly opened. A gush of cold air from behind the stone door, faint wisps of white gas, drifted in the stone chamber. Ghost King strode in, the stone door behind him closed again. Everything had not changed. That quietly lying figure even included that man in his memory who was always sitting at the side. Ghostly did not turn back, even if he took a glance. He was still looking at Baiyao, and Ghost King also did not speak, quietly walked to the other side of the cold stone platform, stared at his daughter. Baiyao was still calm with a satisfied smile, quietly lying down. Her hands were crossed in front of her, and the magical falcon treasure, the Hehuan bell, was quietly resting in her palm. The faint, golden radiance seemed to be refracted from the body of the Hehuan bell, emitting light of different lengths. In the silent stone room, for some reason, it always gave people an illusion, as if there was a low reverberating, clear ringing of the bell. But listening carefully, there was no trace of it, only the faint radiance of the bell, like a gentle eye, watching the two men in the stone room. "These days when I was not here, how is she?" Ghost King indifferently said. His gaze, since entering the stone chamber, had always been on his daughter. Ghostly slowly looked up, looked at Ghost King. Ghost King also looked away from Baiyao, looked at Ghostly. The two men's gazes met in the air like a soundless storm and thunder. Between them, in Baiyao's hand, the light on the Hehuan bell gently circulated. "She is very well." Ghostly stood up, faintly said. Ghost King nodded, said, "With you here, I am very assured." He paused, and said, "This time you went to southern border, did you find any news about Soul Return unusual skill?" A trace of sadness flashed past Ghostly's face, shook his head. Ghost King was silent, looked down at Baiyao, softly sighed. Actually this time Ghostly's trip to southern border, the main purpose was naturally to track the beast deity and to receive Ghost King's secret order, to capture the strange beast Taotai beside the beast deity, but right now both of them were conversing, seemed to have forgotten about this matter. In the stone chamber, another period of silence. At the end, Ghost King's face turned solemn, faintly said, "I still have something to tell you, but this place is not suitable, let's go out." Ghostly nodded, did not say much, for the last time he looked at Baiyao, for some reason, a trace of guilt flashed past his eyes. He casually turned and walked out. Ghost King followed behind him, walked out of the stone door. The heavy stone door slowly descended, once again cutting off the silence. In the huge cold stone chamber, only the faint light from the Hehuan bell was left. Two men walked side by side in the spacious tunnel. Along the way, the evil sect disciples they met, all retreated to the sides, bowed their heads in greeting, footsteps lightly reverberated. After a few turns, both of them came to Ghostly's residence. Ghost King glanced at Ghostly, seemed to sense something. Ghostly frowned slightly but did not look at Ghost King. After a slight hesitation, he stretched out his hand to open the door. Both of them walked in. Zzzz, zzaho, Xiao Hui's familiar cries, accompanied by a few strange cries. The Taotai who was once the strange beast that followed beside the beast deity, right now was lying on the floor in Ghostly's room, just that it looked dispirited and lethargic, with its bell-like big eyes closed, motionless lying on the floor. Instead the monkey Xiao Hui was still as energetic as usual, jumping around the Taotai, touching left and right, sometimes pulling the Taotai's tail, sometimes patting the Taotai's head, and even more, occasionally stretching its hand to the Taotai's bloody mouth, pulling it open, looking somewhat curious to peek inside. Looking at Xiao Hui, it seemed like it wanted to make the Taotai more energetic, to play together, but obviously it had no effect on the Taotai. After Ghost King and Ghostly walked in, the Taotai turned a blind eye to them, still lying lazily on the floor. The monkey Xiao Hui gave a cry of joy, jumped up Ghostly's body in 2 or 3 leaps, crouched on its master's shoulder. Ghostly stroked Xiao Hui's head, indifferently said to Ghost King, "This is it." Ghost King did not speak, only watched the Taotai lying on the floor. At the corner of his lips, a faint smile slowly revealed, just that in the smile, there was an additional trace of unfathomable meaning. Chapter 4:11. Ghost King walked towards the Taotai, his steps steady and peaceful. Xiao Hui, who was sitting on Ghostly's shoulder, turned its head, looked at Ghost King's back, called out twice and suddenly quietened down. Tao Tai, who was lying on the ground, seemed to have sensed something. Its huge head moved to one side, lifted up, its huge eyes also opened. Two beams of ominous glint instantly landed on the Ghost King, who was walking over. A burst of low and deep roar faintly reverberated from its big mouth. Ho! The originally peaceful and tranquil atmosphere in the room suddenly became inexplicably tense. The iron-like hard armor on the back of the Tao Tai's head tensed up piece by piece. Its big mouth slowly opened, revealing terrifying and sharp teeth. Ghost King faced this terrifying beast, but there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, with his back facing Ghostly, his eyes kept flickering with a strange light, in which there was an unconcealable ecstasy and desire. He faced the already enraged Tao Tai beast, did not even stop his steps, and behind him, Ghostly watched his back, his brows already frowning slightly. The Tao Tai obviously could not tolerate such provocation, revealed its ferocious look, its huge eyes gradually turned red, its huge body slowly stood up, assuming an attacking stance. And Ghost King, on the other hand, seemed to completely disregard the beast's reaction. All of his attention was only focused on observing the situation around the Tao Tai. Finally, when Ghost King neared the Tao Tai, 1 foot within 3 chi of it, the Tao Tai, as expected, could no longer endure. With a wild roar, immediately shook the surrounding stone walls faintly. Its huge body abruptly leapt up, brandished its claws, pouncing towards Ghost King. In the originally tranquil stone room, a violent gale abruptly followed that huge body. The originally neatly arranged tables and chairs were instantly blown away. Pring pring pring, a few sounds, smashed onto the wall, broke into a few pieces. In the blink of an eye, the huge beast body had already pounced on Ghost King's head. In the distance, the monkey Xiao Hui let out a few cries, "Ji." But it did not sound like it was worried. On the contrary, it seemed to be gloating, as if this intelligent monkey did not have a good impression of the Ghost King, who was currently in danger, and could not wait for Tao Tai to slap that guy to death. But Ghost Li's view was obviously not the same as Xiao Hui. His originally frowning brows, right now after an imperceptible doubt flashed in his eyes, his frown deepened, as if in his eyes, in that instant, he saw something that he did not expect. The huge body pounced down with a violent wind. The momentum was astonishing, but in just a moment, like a ghost, the body of the Ghost King suddenly disappeared into thin air from the impossible place. Tao Tai's powerful attack only ended up with the result of hitting nothing but air. The next moment, Ghost King's gray figure suddenly appeared, behind the stunned Tao Tai, stretched out his hand, like lightning grabbed the flesh on the back of Tao Tai's neck. Looking at him, it seemed like he wanted to use his own powers, to pick up this beast that everyone feared, like a domestic kitten or puppy. This grab did not look fast, but the Tao Tai was unable to avoid it. A low roar, the Tao Tai's neck was already restrained, just that the Tao Tai was after all a strange beast. Under the restraint it did not have any intention of yielding, instead it seemed to become angrier, roared continuously. The metal skin on its body immediately tightened, its entire body seemed to have expanded by more than 3 times. Ghost King's countenance changed. At the same time he felt a stinging pain in his right hand. The palm that was protected by the evil sect True Way seemed to be unable to withstand this strange beast's power. Ghost King did not hesitate. After releasing his hand, he retreated 3 steps. Ghostly and Xiao Hui stood at the side, saw clearly. The metal skin on the back of the Tao Tai's neck, which was originally impervious to swords and spears, had 5 bloody red claw marks, and the wounds did not look shallow. Blood was already slowly flowing out. The Tao Tai raised its head and roared, already in a berserk state, abruptly turned around and faced Ghost King. And Xiao Hui, who was lying on Ghost Li's shoulder, at this moment also leapt up, both of its hands waving wildly, pointing at Ghost King and calling out, looking extremely enraged. Although no one in this stone chamber knew the monkey language, but without asking, the monkey language that Xiao Hui was speaking, most of it was cursing and swearing at Ghost King. Xiao Hui scolded a few times but seemed to not have vented its hatred. With a leap, it was about to jump down, looked like it wanted to help its friend, to teach this hateful Ghost King a lesson. Just that its body had just leapt into the air, suddenly a hand stretched out from behind, grabbed Xiao Hui and forcefully pulled it back. It was Ghostly. Xiao Hui was somewhat surprised and also somewhat angry, called out to Ghostly incessantly. Ghostly turned a deaf ear, only frowning tightly, watching the scene. Xiao Hui had only called out a few words and suddenly turned its head, clearly attracted by something in the scene. The Tao Tai's deafening roar, its huge body with sharp fangs pounced towards Ghost King, and this time Ghost King did not have the intention to dodge, only raised his arm. A dark red light streaked past from Ghost King's sleeve, silently but instantly a faint smell of blood filled the entire stone chamber. An even deeper and strange roar, in the unseen nothingness, burst out. There was no sound of silk tearing, but it seemed to tear the space in this stone chamber. Even the Tao Tai's earth-shattering roar was also silenced. The dark red light, in an instant flourished, had already enveloped Ghost King's entire body, flickering indeterminately. Ghost King's figure could no longer be seen clearly, and Tao Tai also seemed to feel something. In the midst of astonishment, there was actually some fear, involuntarily took a step back. An ancient-looking, slightly dilapidated ancient cauldron slowly rose up from the depths of the red light. Following the appearance of this ancient cauldron, the red light in the stone chamber was like blood. Not a single object was not dyed red, and that smell of blood became even more intense, nauseating. The fear in the Tao Tai's eyes deepened, but under the stimulation of this smell of blood, as if the ferocious nature hidden in its bones was also lured out. After a few moments of hesitation, it did not turn and run. Instead, with a loud roar, it again pounced towards that ancient cauldron. Far away, Ghostly frowned tightly. His body could not help but move, and then he forced himself to stop, his eyes staring intently at that ancient cauldron. Not so long ago, 10 years ago, at the East Sea Lubo Hill, he had seen this ancient celestial weapon before. Unexpectedly today, it seemed to have completely changed. The Tao Tai's enormous body pounced towards the hidden dragon cauldron, but when it was only 3 chi away from the cauldron, suddenly, a rumble was heard from the hidden dragon cauldron, as if a deep mysterious incantation was muttering in the void, following which a red light shrouded the Tao Tai's entire body. The Tao Tai immediately trembled, its face in extreme pain, howled to the sky, but as if its strength was sucked out, it fell down from the air. Ghost Li's countenance changed slightly. The hidden dragon cauldron's power was beyond his expectations, clearly incomparable to the past. Actually, the hidden dragon cauldron's power had already changed beyond recognition in these 10 years. Ghost King, with Mr. Ghost's help, comprehended the inscriptions on the cauldron, gathered the spiritual beast's divine power to activate the 4 divinities' blood formation. Right now in the hidden dragon cauldron, it had already gathered the spiritual powers of the Kuei cow, yellow bird and torch dragon, the 3 divine beasts, although the Tao Tai was a strange beast, but compared to the other 3, it was definitely at a disadvantage. Moreover, this hidden dragon cauldron was an ancient celestial weapon, itself had a strange power. The stronger the spiritual power of the divine beasts, the more powerful the 4 divinities' blood formation's evil power was. Once it faced the enemy, the Tao Tai was immediately suppressed. Right now the red light flashed, like a real entity, tightly shrouded the Tao Tai's huge body. The Tao Tai's body trembled, in extreme pain, but it could not move. Even the roars from its mouth quickly became softer, leaving only panting sounds. In the stone chamber, the stench of blood became heavier. Ghost King looked at the Tao Tai, who was crawling on the ground. Ecstasy flashed in his eyes. He suddenly laughed loudly to the sky, his appearance different from usual, like a madman. And at this strange moment, suddenly a zzz angry cries. The Tao Tai, who was tightly bound by the red light, also struggled to turn its head to look. It was Xiao Hui. It resolutely leapt into the air and landed beside the Tao Tai, stretched out its hand wanting to help, but the red light looked like it was an illusory radiance. When Xiao Hui stretched out its hand, it instead cried out and jumped away. It seemed like it had suffered a loss. Xiao Hui bared its teeth, looked extremely furious, bared its sharp teeth at Ghost King, making a provocative gesture. Ghost King did not know since when, under that glinting blood-like red light, both of his eyes had already turned blood red. Right now he abruptly turned his head, instantly his murderous aura surged. Without further words, a gush of black energy abruptly soared, pounced out from the red light, striking towards Xiao Hui. Naturally Xiao Hui was also not easy to deal with. The useless monkey, although furious but it could also see the ferocious light trembling in that black energy, refused to take it head-on, leapt to the side a few times and evaded. Missing Ghost King with a long cry, the black energy's speed instantly doubled. At the same time it seemed to split into several streams of black energy like lightning, struck down from all directions. The little ghost used both its hands and feet, dodged left and right, barely managed to evade by a hair's breadth, but it was already in a precarious situation. A few times it was almost hit by the black energy. And Ghost King right now for some reason, facing such a monkey, did not have the slightest intention of showing mercy. In the black energy, suddenly another low cry was heard. The wind and clouds howled and gathered, condensing into a blood-red palm, struck down from above. Xiao Hui had already been forced to stagger left and right by the black energy. Right now it had no way to retreat, looked like it was about to be hit by this blood-red palm. Chapter 412. And at this critical juncture, suddenly an arm stretched out from the side, passed through the piercingly cold murderous black blood light, grabbed the monkey's tail and pulled outwards. Xiao Hui's body immediately flew backwards, and the vicious black energy blocking its back, unknowingly dispersed. Xiao Hui flew out unscathed, escaped, but Ghost King, who was hiding in the depths of the red light, seemed to make an angry roar. The murderous aura became even stronger. The surrounding black energy and red light instantly solidified. A huge red palm print slapped down towards this arm that suddenly appeared, and after the red light, the hidden dragon cauldron slowly started to rotate. Strange light flowed inside the cauldron, strange incantations faintly discernible, a murderous intent. The red light dazzled. In a flash, Ghost Li's figure appeared. It was him who had saved Xiao Hui's life at the critical moment. At the same time, he also turned to face Ghost King. For some reason, the hidden dragon cauldron's strange demonic power had not stopped since it started. The whistling sounds became more and more desolate. The red palm print indistinctly glimmered. Ancient cauldron-shaped strange incantations pounced over. Ghostly frowned tightly, but facing this exceptional evil skill, he had no intention of retreating. Both his arms waved up. Before the red palm print, which was as fast as lightning, arrived, in the empty space before him, he drew out a Taiji diagram. The green light suddenly rose, like a clear spring pouring into the dry soil. The murderous aura in the room actually shook. The Taiji diagram shrouded with clear energy. It was the orthodox pure Qing Yun sect remarkable skill, Tai Chi Xian Qing Wei. The red seal, the next moment with a loud rumble, crashed onto the Taiji diagram. Unexpectedly, there was no earth-shattering deafening sound and commotion. On the contrary, like a clay ox entering a quagmire, there was not the slightest sound, just that the red seal stopped in the air, unable to advance another step, and Ghost Li's face instantly turned red, as if blood was about to drip out. Ghost Li's eyes glinted sharply, looked deeply into that red light. With a cold snort, his feet moved, retreating. Every step he retreated, that red blood mark pressed forward a little. At the same time, every step he retreated, his palms did not stop for a moment. His fingers bent and rose, the seal changed, the Taiji diagram between his hands shone with clear light but did not weaken at all. When he retreated to the third step, his hands formed the precious vase seal. The unusual red expression on his face had already eased. The edge of the Taiji diagram had already started to emit faint golden light. When he retreated to the fifth step, his hands formed the grasping flower seal. The Taiji diagram's golden light and green air interweaved and reflected, and when he retreated to the seventh step, Ghost Lee's back was already against the stone wall, there was no more way to retreat. But right now, Ghost Lee's face had already reverted back to normal, without the unusual red. Both of his hands shook. Ghost Lee had already formed a Buddhist Vajra seal. In an instant, golden light flourished, and a solemn image shot out in all directions. It was as if there were deities and Buddhas softly chanting sutras around them, deep and pleasing to the ears. The Taiji diagram spun rapidly, and golden light shone brilliantly. The red blood seal was gradually swallowed up by the Taiji diagram and disappeared. The dazzling golden-green light filled the sky, charged straight up, and actually suppressed Ghost King's red light. And in the depths of the red light, an angry roar was heard, evidently that person was enraged. The red light swayed, a few wails were heard, the Taotai on the ground was sucked in by the red light, its huge body was actually sucked into the hidden dragon cauldron, and in a blink disappeared. And Ghost King's face was gradually revealed in the red light. His white hair danced in the air, both of his eyes red, murderous, where was the usual composed look, almost like a murderous demon. And Ghostly did not have the slightest fear, instead striding forward. The hidden dragon cauldron spun non-stop, the strange inscriptions on the cauldron flickered incessantly, waves of red light. Ghost King raised his right hand. The huge ancient cauldron had already landed on his right hand, looking like a demon descending to earth, extremely terrifying. And Ghost Lee's body was glowing. Evidently he had already gathered all his supernatural powers and was ready for the final battle. The two experts confronted each other, murderous, this sudden battle. Both of them seemed to have long forgotten the reason, just that right now, they seemed to have suddenly lost the rationality that they had suppressed in their hearts for many years, attacked with all their might, the demons in their hearts dancing wildly. Ghostly strode forward, nearer and nearer to Ghost King, and the baleful look in Ghost King's eyes became thicker. The hidden dragon cauldron slowly turned in the air, facing Ghostly. A great battle was about to break out. Who would have thought the two most important figures in the evil sect, in such a secluded stone chamber, inexplicably fell into a life-and-death battle? Boom! A loud sound was heard from the stone chamber. Ghost King and Ghostly, the two men, seemed to see each other's eyes twitching slightly, but in that moment of imminent peril, they actually did not move. The stone chamber door slowly collapsed. Outside the door, a figure slowly appeared, a figure whose entire body seemed to be trembling slightly. "Stop!" That delicate voice, with anger, puzzlement and some panic, Yuji, who was also the evil sect's vermilion bird, stood at the door. It was impossible to see her facial expression under the black veil, but it was clear that she was filled with resentment. What are you two doing? Are you both crazy?" In the stone chamber, silence, the two men confronted each other, also silent, did not speak. In the air, that murderous aura still lingered. Good. Yuji seemed to bite her lips, angrily spoke from between her teeth. She raised her hand, pointed to that direction. "All of you kill, all of you just die, everything will be peaceful after you die. Do you all still remember that place? Her voice was a bit choked. "In that cold stone room, is there someone lying on the stone platform? Have all of you forgotten? Which one of you still remember Baiyao?" These two words. The red blood light quietly dispersed. The dazzling green and golden light gradually disappeared. The murderous aura and bloody stench in the stone chamber, unknowingly, like the tide, receded. Only silence, still lingering there, unwilling to leave. The two men stared at each other. Deep in their eyes, there seemed to be an indescribable light colliding. Yuji hatefully stamped her feet, turned and left without looking back, looking at the direction she was heading. It should be the cold stone chamber where Baiyao was at. And the two men still lingering in the stone chamber seemed to still be confronting each other, quietly spying on some secrets. After a long time, Ghost King suddenly indifferently snorted. His right hand waved, holding the hidden dragon cauldron in his hand, strided out of the room. When he walked past Ghostly, in his eyes, a sharp glint seemed to dazzle out. and Ghost Lee's eyes, at that moment, did not notice Ghost King, but on the hidden dragon cauldron. The unsophisticated ancient cauldron had many minute damages, but on the deep green with purple cauldron, many twisted mysterious inscriptions could still be clearly seen, and on the back of the cauldron, in the middle of those inscriptions, there was a picture, imprinted into Ghost Lee's eyes. The fire burned fiercely, in the fire was roasting a huge cauldron, around the huge cauldron, 4 kinds of strange beasts, whether birds or beasts, howled to the sky, and above the huge cauldron, black clouds rolled. It was a hideous and terrifying demon king's face, grinning hideously at the mortal world. This picture only flashed past Ghost Lee's eyes, but for some reason, it was already deeply imprinted in Ghost Lee's mind, unable to be erased. And in his impression, that demon king's face was so familiar, just that at this moment, he could not recall whether he had seen this demon king before. Ghost King very quickly walked out of the stone chamber, disappeared outside. The stone chamber resumed its peace. The monkey Xiaohui jumped over from the side, leapt onto Ghost Lee's shoulder, slowly sat down, but there was not the slightest joy on its face. From time to time it turned to look at the door, its mouth making low sounds, zzz sounds. Ghostly was silent, stretched out his hand and gently stroked Xiaohui's head. After a moment, he made a light sigh and then turned and walked out of the stone chamber, strolling. The long tunnel seemed to lead in all directions, just like the road of life. Nobody knew where to go, or it should be said, even if you thought you knew, in fact, that road, where would it lead to, who would know? An hour later, Ghostly stopped, stunned speechless, realized that the place he stopped at was outside the cold stone chamber. The thick stone wall lay in front of him, but he suddenly felt afraid, even when facing Ghost King's hidden dragon cauldron evil skills. He was not afraid. Right now he could not help but feel afraid. That stone door, quietly like that, stood erect in front of him. Slightly trembling hand stretched over. The stone door, like countless times in the past, emitted a deep rumbling sound, opened. At the first crack that opened, indistinctly, he saw a slender figure, standing in front of the cold stone platform. In the air, there seemed to be a clear and familiar bell sound. He seemed to be dazed. Chapter 4:13. The white cold air curling up like smoke, quietly drifted in the cold stone chamber. This day, the cold air in the cold stone chamber seemed to be much thicker than usual. Even looking over, there seemed to be a hazy feeling, not as clear as usual. The stone door emitted a deep rumble, slowly opened, just that slender figure, for some reason, seemed to be blurry. It was Yuji, right? Ghostly thought like this in his heart as he slowly walked in. In the cold stone chamber, the faint cold air drifted, threads like a dream shrouded his figure. That female figure, quietly with her back facing him, standing in front of the ice stone platform, and around her, the cold air seemed to be especially heavy. Even the white air condensed from the cold air was like frost and snow, indistinct. In the air, that indistinct clear bell sound reverberated, as if it was near his ears. For some reason, Ghostly subconsciously stopped, maybe because of today's matter. He found it difficult to face Yuji, especially after Yuji loudly reprimanded and mentioned Baiyao. Thinking back, although Ghostly was bewildered by Ghost King's unusual behavior today, but towards his own unhesitating counterattack, he could only remain silent. Perhaps, in the hearts of these two men, there was already hatred buried deep in their hearts? But, there was still Baiyao in this world, and she was lying in this cold stone chamber. Ghostly glanced at that indistinct figure, hidden in the cold air, quietly lowered his head, after a long time said, "Just now I fought with Ghost King sect leader. It was my fault. I also don't know how things suddenly turned out like this. Don't be angry, I won't do it again." That figure's shoulder seemed to tremble but did not speak, still remained quiet, just that the surrounding cold air seemed to circulate faster, even in this stone chamber, seemed to have turned colder. Just that this stone chamber had always been cold, Ghostly did not mind. He sighed, wanted to speak but stopped. Yuji and Baiyao's relationship, he naturally knew, after Bai Yao's mother passed away, Ghost King focused on Ghost King's sect affairs. Yuji more or less played the role of Bai Yao's mother. This could be seen from how Bai Yao had always addressed Yuji as Aunt Yu. Facing her now, especially in this cold stone chamber, Ghostly felt that he was really facing Bai Yao, and his guilt towards Bai Yao was deep. Today he even fought with Ghost King, almost deciding life and death. It was even more difficult to express. After a long time, he heaved a long sigh, quietly said, "I know you are worried about Bai Yao and do not wish to see me and her father fighting again. Actually, I did not have such intention, just that at that time." He frowned. Ghost King's unusual expression again flashed past his mind, shook his head and said, "Anyway, I promise you, in the future I will give in to him for Bai Yao's sake." That slender figure seemed to move again, but she still did not turn around. However, looking at her back, it seemed that she was silently nodding her head in approval. Ghostly was silent. After a moment, he heaved a long sigh, did not wish to speak any more, slightly turned around, wanted to walk towards that stone platform, to take a good look at Bai Yao. Just that when he was about to step out, suddenly, his entire body froze in that instant, like a spark. A thought flashed past his mind, like thunder in his mind, rumbled. Yuji's face veil which never left her body, why from the back, he could not see this figure? Almost at the same time, Ghost Lee's chaotic mind immediately recalled, this figure's beautiful hairstyle, was a young lady's, totally different from Yuji's bun. He like lightning turned around, loudly shouted, "Who are you?" The cold air in the cold stone chamber, instantly chilled to the bone, the light smoke which shrouded that figure, in that instant started to spin rapidly. Ghost Lee's eyes were wide open. There was actually an outsider who invaded this cold stone chamber. To him, this was absolutely unacceptable. Just as Ghostly was about to make a move, suddenly a low rumbling sound came from behind him. Ghostly was bewildered and turned his head to look, only to see that the stone door that was originally closed behind him slowly opened again, and a figure appeared at the doorway. Tall and slender, black veil covering her face, a serene aura. If it was not Yuji, who could it be? Yuji opened the stone door and suddenly saw Ghost Lee's strange expression, both eyes wide open, his facial muscles twisted. Instead she was startled and couldn't help but stepped back, but she was after all not an ordinary person. Immediately calmed down, coldly said, "Humph, you still have the face to come here to see Bai Yao?" Ghostly stared deeply at her. Suddenly his expression changed, as if he recalled something important, quickly turned and looked. Just that with this look, his entire body shook, like he was stunned, stood there in a daze, unable to make a sound. The huge cold stone chamber, the place where he was at, suddenly, completely recovered its original appearance. The strange white smoke disappeared, the indistinct bell sounds disappeared. As for that mysterious figure, in that instant, disappeared into thin air. Everything seemed like it was the same as before, like a dream, an illusion, drifted past, drifted away. Bai Yao quietly laid on the stone platform, her lips still had that familiar smile, her hands clasped together, the Hehuan bell glimmered incessantly, gently moving, as if watching Ghostly. Ghostly stood there, his body tense, as if he had lost all senses, motionless. Yuji, who slowly walked into the cold stone chamber, soon discovered something was wrong with Ghostly, glanced at him, frowned and said, "What are you doing?" Ghost Lee's lips moved but did not speak. He only silently looked up, blankly assessed this cold stone chamber. Other than that heavy stone door, the stone chamber was surrounded by solid stone walls, without a single crack. Just that looking at it now, those cold stone walls seemed to carry some cruel mockery, coldly staring at this ridiculous person. The drifting gaze slowly turned back to the cold stone chamber, to the person lying on the stone platform. Ghost Lee's eyes, for some reason, turned blurry, thousands of thoughts, like tide surged in, that gaze, finally quietly landed on Bai Yao's hair. "What happened to you?" Yuji's voice already had some impatience. Ghostly closed his eyes, after a long time slowly opened them, quietly said, When you came in, did you notice anything strange in this stone chamber? Yuji humphed, coldly said, What is strange? Isn't it still the same as before, one platform and one person? The muscles at the corner of Ghost Li's eyes seemed to twitch. Yuji slowly sat down beside Baiyao, her eyes revealing a tender and pained expression. After watching for a long time, she slowly said, I know you are actually not living well too, just that I hope you can think more. If Baiyao knew that you actually fought with her father, how would she feel? Ghostly was stunned and did not speak. After a moment, suddenly shook his head, took a long breath, said, Don't worry, I know what to do. After speaking, he looked deeply at Baiyao again, and then turned and strode out. Watching his back figure, Yuji frowned slightly, instinctively felt that Ghostly seemed to be different from usual, but then she heaved a long sigh. He was not the only one who was different. Now even Ghost King's sect head, whom she had followed for so many years, wasn't he more and more incomprehensible to her? She quietly lowered her head, sank into deep thoughts. The cold stone chamber was quiet, only the Hehuan bell in Baiyao's hand, the flowing light flickering, like a clear eye, flickering incessantly, watching this world. Qingyun Hill, small bamboo valley. Early morning, a cool breeze blew past, the verdant bamboo forest swayed together, the rustling of the bamboo leaves, like the sounds of nature, calming one's mind. The heavy rain last night, as if it had washed heaven and earth, the fresh air brushed past, the distant mountains were dyed black, the landscape like a painting. The stone path beneath her feet was still wet, occasionally in the cracks of the stones, there were some accumulated rainwater from last night. On the stone path and both sides, many bamboo leaves fell, most likely blown down by last night's storm. The hour was still early, no one had come to clean yet. Her clothes were as white as snow, delicate and pretty. Lu Sueki walked alone in this bamboo forest path. In the faint morning breeze, her hair softly draped over her shoulders, her delicate skin, snow-white but with a faint trace of pink, like in a deep mountain valley, quietly blooming beautiful flowers. Chapter 4:14. On both sides of the stone path, the tall bamboo swayed slightly. On the green bamboo leaves, there were still condensed dew, quietly gliding past, quietly flying to the ground. She stepped forward, never looking back, her white clothes fluttering, walked into the depths of the green bamboo forest. The stone path was deep and winding, the morning light penetrated through the gaps in the dense bamboo forest, the bamboo shadows swayed, illuminating her graceful figure. A simple bamboo house ahead gradually appeared. It was the place where small bamboo valley head Shueiwe master usually meditated and cultivated. Lu Sueki walked to the house, stopped at the door, hesitated for a moment, stretched out her hand and lightly patted the bamboo door. Teacher, disciple Sueki greet. Come in. Shueiwe master's voice was heard from the house, no joy nor sorrow, seemed to carry the slightest emotion, indifferent like water. The door creaked and was gently pushed open by Lu Sueki. Lu Sueki walked in and immediately saw his master sitting cross-legged on the bamboo bed. His eyes were closed and his expression was peaceful. He did not seem to have changed his expression because of his arrival. Lu Sueki quietly walked to Shueiwe master, knelt down, quietly said, Teacher, disciple is here. She paused and continued, Sueki know I am unfilial, failed to live up to your expectations, made teacher sad, please punish me. Shueiwe master slowly opened her eyes landed on Lu Sueki, after a long time, sighed and said, If I punish you, will you change your mind? Lu Sueki silently bowed her head, did not dare to look at her teacher's face, did not say a word, just looking at her expression, where was the slightest hint of regret. Shueiwe master shook her head, smiled bitterly and said, Since you have already steeled your heart and refused to turn back, what is the use of me punishing you? Forget it, forget it. You get up. Lu Sueki bit her lips, seemed agitated but still controlled herself, stood up. Shueiwe master gently patted the bamboo couch beside her, said, You also sit. Lu Sueki shook her head, said, Disciple does not dare. Shueiwa Master glanced at her, said, "There are only two of us here. What is there to fuss about, unless in your heart you still bear a grudge against me as your teacher, and are estranged from me?" Lu Sueki looked up abruptly and hurriedly shook his head. "Master, Master." Shueiwa waved her hand and smiled. All right, I raised you up and taught you. What kind of character you are, do you think I don't know?" She stretched out her hand and held Lu Sueki's hand, gently pulled her to sit beside her, carefully looked at Lu Sueki's beautiful and elegant face, sighed and said, "No matter what, as your teacher, I am after all doing this for your own good, you must remember." The corner of Lu Sueki's mouth twitched, and he said in a low voice, "I understand, it's all my fault." Master Shueiwa shook her head and said, "Forget it, now that things have come to this, let's not argue who is right and who is wrong. Ask the world, what is love? Thousands of snowy mountains. In these thousands of mountains and rivers, who could really accompany him for a lifetime?" Speaking till here, it was as if Shueiwa Master herself also touched upon her thoughts, for a moment in a daze. Lu Sueki did not dare to disturb her teacher, only felt her teacher holding her hand. The warmth from her palm was a long-lost familiarity. After a long time, Shueiwa Master suddenly shook, woke up from her daze, smiled bitterly, seemed to be self-deprecating, and then said to Lu Sueki, "Ai, we will talk about these things later. Last night I asked Wenmin to call you over. Did she tell you everything?" Lu Sueki shook her head, said, "Senior sister did not say, only told me to look for teacher in the morning, said if there is anything, teacher, you will tell me yourself." Shueiwa Master silently nodded, said, "That's right, Wenmin that girl although knows a little, but after all not much, let me tell you." Lu Sueki was slightly shocked, looked at Shueiwa Master's solemn face, as if there was something difficult in her heart, couldn't help but said, "Teacher, what is it? If there is anything you need disciple to do, just tell me, disciple will definitely do my best to do it." Shueiwa Master nodded, smiled and said, "Of course I believe you, just that there is indeed a big matter, but it concerns our Qin Yun sect's fate, but we cannot let too many outsiders, including our sect disciples, know about it. I have thought about it, only you are the best among our sect disciples, so I called you over." Lu Sueki raised her brows, slightly surprised, said, "Teacher, don't tell me something big happened in our sect?" Shueiwa Master smiled bitterly, said, "Who says not?" Lu Sueki said, "What happened, teacher?" Shueiwa Master hesitated for a moment, seemed to be deliberating, then slowly said, "Your sect head teacher uncle, and Big Bamboo Valley Tian Bui Tian teacher uncle, disappeared together a few days ago." Lu Sueki's body shook, said, "They disappeared together?" Shueiwa Master lightly said, "That day there was once a senior sect disciple who saw Tian Bui arriving at Tong Tian Peak and went straight to Founder's Ancestral Hall at the back of the mountain. These days, everyone knew sect head senior brother was almost always in Founder's Ancestral Hall, and from then on, no one had seen them again." Lu Sueki frowned tightly, clearly very shocked. Shueiwa Master paused for a moment and said, "After this happened, because the implications were too great, now Tong Tian Peak's Shao Ikai did not dare to cover it up, but no matter what he did not dare to announce it, only secretly informed our branch leaders. After that I also went to Founder's Ancestral Hall to check, but did not expect that there was already." Lu Sueki was surprised, said, "What happened to Founder's Ancestral Hall?" Shueiwa Master shook her head, said, "Ancestral Hall was almost destroyed. One look and one can see that it was destroyed by the intense fight." "What?" Lu Sueki cried out involuntarily. Shueiwa Master coldly laughed, said, "Founder's Ancestral Hall is where our Qin Yun sect worships generations of ancestors. The two of them dared to fight in such a solemn place, really lawless. And there was an even more serious matter." Lu Sueki was shocked and shocked again. She really could not think of anything more serious than destroying Founder's Ancestral Hall, could not help but asked, "What else is there?" "Yesterday, Shao Ikai hurriedly ran over to me." Shueiwa Master's face turned solemn, her eyes even more worried, unhurriedly said, "According to what he said, ever since Dao Xian's senior brother disappeared, He tried his best to investigate but to no avail, so he wanted to check his teacher's remains, to see if there were any discoveries. Unexpectedly this search, he discovered a major matter. Lu Sueki stared at Shueiwa Master. Shueiwa Master closed her eyes, as if tired, said, Shao Ikai discovered, our sect's Zhu Xian ancient sword, is also missing. Lu Sueki was stunned speechless. Shueiwa Master opened her eyes, said, I know you are an intelligent person, naturally know the implications and profoundness, although Zhu Xian ancient sword is already destroyed, but the implications are too great, and most outsiders do not know about the sword's destruction. If it is spread out, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. And speaking of Zhu Xian ancient sword, there is actually a huge secret, even more important, only our Qing Yun sect head and a few others know about it. If it is leaked out, the consequences would be unthinkable. Lu Sueki was shocked. Zhu Xian's sword, other than being our sect's divine weapon, don't tell me there is another secret? Shueiwa Master was silent, for a long time did not speak. Lu Sueki also did not dare to speak, stood aside, after a long while quietly said, Disciple is rude, I have lost my composure just now. Shueiwa Master silently shook her head, after a long while said, Teacher does not mean to blame you, just that the implications are too great, the sequence of events is also extremely complicated. Speaking till here, she paused for a while, seemed to be contemplating, after a moment said, Actually according to logic, even I as the head of Small Bamboo Valley, should not know about it, just that 100 years ago that chaos, the few of us accidentally found out 1 or 2 insider information. Lu Sueki was stunned, said, The few of us, could it be that this huge secret, other than Teacher Yu, there are others who know about it? Shueiwa Master indifferently said, In that chaos, counting the people who participated, there should be 5, other than me, there is still Daoxian's senior brother, Tian Bui, Suru junior sister. Lu Sueki was listening, suddenly Shueiwa Master stopped, silently calculating in her heart, could not help but said, Teacher, there are only 4 people here, who is the other one? Shueiwa Master sighed, a faint melancholy flashed past her face, said, It is your teacher uncle, called Wan Jian Yi. Chapter 4:15. 100 years ago, the evil sect was rampant, its power was strong, the Tao was weak and the evil was strong, the group of evil was arrogant, wanted to wipe out the good faction and invaded Qing Yun. After a series of tragic battles, finally the seniors and the rest fought with all their might, at the foot of Qing Yun Hill, invited the Zhu Xian ancient sword, activated the Zhu Xian sword formation and finally turned defeat into victory. Shueiwa Master's tone was calm, Lu Sueki's face changed slightly. Just from that phrase of tragic battles, one could imagine the intense and cruel battle situation. However, Shueiwa Master did not seem to be interested in this, quickly continued, After this battle, although the evil sect was heavily injured but our Qing Yun branch also suffered a great loss, many of our highly skilled senior ancestors were either dead or injured, we did not have the strength to pursue relentlessly, just that at this time, there was a senior brother who stood out, volunteered bravely, with lofty sentiments, wanted to eradicate the evil completely, pursue and kill the evil sect remnants. Lu Sueki was moved, said, This teacher uncle, is it Wan Jian Wan teacher uncle? Shueiwa Master slowly closed her eyes, her tone also slowly became erratic. It is him. AI, the scene at that time, until now I still remember vividly. In that fierce battle, he had already made great contributions, killed numerous enemies, his white clothes were all dyed red. He stood in front of the various teachers, his expression impassioned, just a few words only made us young junior brothers and sisters blood boiling. After that, other than Daoxian's senior brother as a senior disciple, who stayed behind to guard Qing Yun, me, Suru junior sister, Tian Bui, Xing Shuchang, Shang Jingliang, Tian Yun, Song Song and the rest of the branch leaders, all followed him. From then on we traversed the world, went to the wildlands. Along the way we encountered bloodshed, swords and blades, but we never cowered. Shueisha Master's eyes were still closed, her expression so focused, as if in front of her, that period of hot-blooded youth again appeared, even her cheeks slightly flushed. In the small house, no one spoke for a moment, but the atmosphere seemed to be restless, like a surging torrent under the calm, silently swept past. After a long time, Shueisha Master suddenly laughed bitterly, shook her head, her voice turned sorrowful, said, "Forget it, these old matters are all in the past. That year, our group of people went through a calamity and heavily injured the remnants of the evil sect. Only then did we return to Qin Yun. But at that moment we were unintentionally dragged into a secret of our sect. After returning to Qin Yun, Suru junior sister and Tian Bui developed feelings for each other over time, but I really did not like this person. One night, the two of them sneaked out again without telling your teacher ancestor Zhen Yu Master, after being discovered by me, worried that junior sister would be at a disadvantage, and also unwilling to report them. If not, your teacher ancestor would be angry. Suru junior sister would have to suffer, so I followed them all the way." When Lu Sueki heard this, she was surprised and couldn't help but find it funny, but she dared not show it on her face. Fortunately Shueisha Master seemed to know and did not pause too much and continued. Who knew that both of them were young and daring? In order to avoid people's eyes and ears, they actually agreed to sneak to Tongtian Peak's rear mountain, ran to the inaccessible founder's ancestral hall for a rendezvous. Lu Sueki was stunned again. After a long while she quietly lowered her head. Big Bamboo Valley head Tian Bai's appearance floated before her eyes. She thought to herself that the world is full of phenomena. Indeed, a person cannot be judged by his appearance. Shueisha Master's face was displeased, snorted and said, "I looked at them like that, I was really infuriated and so appeared, shouted at them to stop." Su junior sister and Tian Bui were naturally startled. After seeing that it was only me, Su junior sister came over with a mischievous smile and pulled me. Tian Bui, that fellow still did not give me a good look. In my anger, I was about to flare up. Lu Sueki thought to herself, if Tian Bui teacher uncle right now still had a good look on his face, or even a smiling face, that would be strange. Shueisha Master suddenly paused, couldn't help but asked, "What happened next?" Shueisha Master was silent for a moment, said, and at this moment, suddenly from the originally desolate and dark founder's ancestral hall, a strange howl was heard, this sound like a wild beast's roar, filled with pain, almost not like a human's voice. The three of us were shocked, subconsciously hid in the dense shadows of the forest. The next moment we saw that secret. Lu Sueki stared intently at Shueisha Master, but saw a faint pained expression on her face. It seemed that this secret in her heart had really been tormented for many years. Even until now, the edges and corners did not seem to have worn off much. Shueisha Master's deep voice sounded somewhat hollow, just that each and every word was like a sudden clap of thunder, slowly uncovering the once dust-laden past. A figure stumbled out of the founder's ancestral hall, his clothes tattered, hair disheveled, covering his face, unable to see his face clearly, and he looked like a lunatic. At the same time his mouth kept on roaring, sometimes groaning in pain, but we couldn't understand what he was saying. The three of us were shocked and afraid. Founder's ancestral hall, such an important place. How could such a lunatic appear? But we couldn't just let him fool around like that. When the three of us were about to go out and stop this madman, suddenly, two figures swept out from Founder's ancestral hall, landed in front of that madman, uniformly knelt down. That night the moonlight was bright and clear. The three of us saw clearly these two people were the two senior brothers whom we, the younger generation, usually highly respected, Dao Xian senior brother and Wan Jianyi senior brother. Lu Sueki exclaimed, "What?" Shueisha Master glanced at her, indifferently said, "You are also shocked, right?" The three of us at that time, our shock was even more than yours, we were all stunned. What happened next was even more inconceivable. Dao Xian senior brother and Wan senior brother, their faces full of grief, actually knelt on the ground, one on each side, each hugging one of that madman's legs, tightly not letting go, their voices pleading earnestly, their mouths calling out, Was teacher 2 words, Lu Sweki this time, was already so shocked that she couldn't even make a sound. Shueihua master looked over, seemed to be completely immersed in the past, her voice deep, said, being called out by them, besides being shocked, we then discovered that lunatic's figure and appearance, it was actually Qing Yun's sect head reverend, these 2 senior brothers teacher, not long ago in the good and evil war, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. We only saw that this sect head teacher uncle did not have any of his usual dignified demeanor. His mouth was babbling nonsense, seemed to be cursing something but we couldn't hear clearly, and the 2 senior brothers looked extremely sorrowful, tears streaming down their faces, tightly hugging sect head teacher uncle's legs, begging, saying teacher wake up, these words. But sect head teacher uncle for some reason, with his level of cultivation, his mind was in a mess. He turned a deaf ear to the pleas of his 2 most proud disciples. In the end, instead he turned his head, both his eyes flashing with a fierce glint, staring at the 2 of them, with a loud roar, actually made a killing move, both palms striking down. When Lu Sweki heard this, as if she was there, couldn't help but trembled. Shueihua master said. At that time the 3 of us were watching from the side, already lost our composure. Now that we saw sect head teacher uncle suddenly turned hostile, attacked the 2 senior brothers, we were even more at a loss. Who knew when the 2 of them were about to lose their lives under Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's palms? Suddenly Daoxian's senior brother hugged sect head teacher uncle's legs and spun. His entire body swiftly spun to Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's back. Like lightning, he had already grabbed Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's arms. At the same time his body shone with bright light, firmly restraining Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. Wan's senior brother didn't seem to expect Daoxian's senior brother to do this, was stunned, unexpectedly Tian Qingzi teacher uncle, although in a frenzy but his skills were still there, both his hands being held by Daoxian's senior brother. He instead kicked out, immediately Wan's senior brother flew out, Wan's senior brother flew out for about 2 zhongs, a mouthful of blood spurted out. The scene changed violently, the 3 of us were dumbfounded, staring blankly, totally not knowing what to do. Daoxian's senior brother was heard shouting, Wan junior brother, why aren't you moving? Wan's senior brother heard it, clearly trembled all over but still did not move, both eyes staring at his teacher and Daoxian's senior brother. Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was highly skilled, fought back with all his might. Daoxian's senior brother, although both his hands were still holding his teacher's body, but in just a short while, his face was flushed red. He had already spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. At the same time the green light on his body quickly dimmed. Obviously his skills at that time was still a distance away from Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. And at this moment it looked like Daoxian's senior brother could not hold on any longer. Suddenly a white figure floated past. It was Wan's senior brother. The 3 of us stared blankly, helplessly watched. Wan's senior brother with a wild roar, pounced over from afar. After a sharp whistle, his dragon slayer sword was already in his hand, pierced into Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's chest. In the small house, a deathly silence, like that desolate night, the silence after the tragedy, after the surging murderous intent, the remnant pain, returned to silence. Lu Sweki's face was pale, after a long time, quietly said, the sect records, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle 100 years ago in front of the past generations of ancestors' memorial tablets in Founder's Ancestral Hall, passed on the position to Daoxian teacher uncle. Shueihua master laughed bitterly, shook her head, her voice low and deep, said, seeing this tragic event in the sect, and the 2 people who killed our teachers, were the 2 senior brothers that we usually respected the most, me, Su junior sister and Tian Bui, the 3 of us, all completely lost our minds, at a loss of what to do. Even Su junior sister in her agitation, accidentally made a little noise. But maybe the 2 of them had just killed their teachers, their emotions were also too agitated, they did not notice us here. And it was also the 2 of them, after looking at each other for a long time, slowly knelt before Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's body, had a conversation. From their conversation, the 3 of us then knew the root cause of this tragedy. What was it? It turned out that in our sect, the supreme celestial weapon Zhu Xian ancient sword passed down by Qing Yi founder, actually had a huge secret, that although this celestial sword killed all evil but maybe because it had killed too many, after a long period of time, this sword itself actually had a strange demonic nature. Once the person wielding the sword stimulated all the spiritual power of the sword, he would suffer the sword's demonic spirit's backlash, gradually controlling his mind, becoming cruel and murderous. Even if it was someone with higher cultivation, he would not be able to resist it. Ever since Master Qing Yi left his instructions, Qing Yun sect's successive generations of sect masters all knew this secret, so they tried their best not to use this divine sword. And Tian Qingzi teacher uncle, due to the urgency of the good and evil war, had no choice but to use this sword to activate the Zhu Xian sword formation. After that, although he immediately sealed this sword and focused on cultivation, but he still could not escape this calamity. When Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was still conscious, he secretly told this secret to his two most proud disciples, Daoxian senior brother and Wan Jianyi senior brother. Firstly, he had always trusted these two the most. Secondly, if he only told one person, in case something happened, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was afraid that his skills were too high, one of them would not be able to control him. In the end, it turned out to be like this. Lu Sueki heard this, suddenly shocked, abruptly looked up, hurriedly said, Teacher, that now the current Daoxian sect head teacher uncle could it be that he also? Shueiyue master heaved a long sigh, silently nodded. Lu Sueki was stunned speechless. Shueiyue master was silent for a long time, faintly said, within 10 years, Daoxian senior brother had used the Zhu Xian ancient sword twice, especially in this demon beast catastrophe. He had even opened all the heaven seals of Qing Yun Hill 7 Peaks, forced the Zhu Xian sword formation's power to the extreme. Such evil spirit backlash power, one can imagine. Actually, I had already thought of it, just that 10 years ago, Daoxian senior brother had already used the Zhu Xian ancient sword once, but he was not affected by the evil spirit backlash power. I was feeling lucky, thought that his skills were high and this time he could still survive the calamity. Unfortunately Heaven's will. Lu Sueki was silent for a moment, said, Teacher, such a big secret, why did you tell disciple? Unless there is something important to instruct disciple? Shueiyue master's face turned solemn, looked at Lu Sueki, said, Exactly. Lu Sueki lowered her head slightly, said, Teacher's kindness is deep, disciple cannot repay it even if I die 9 times, whatever it is, please instruct me. Shueiyue master looked deeply at Lu Sueki, said, Originally this secret, only Qing Yun sect head knows, but I have been observing Shao Ikai these few days, clearly did not know, and as such, in this world, among the people who still know this secret, Tian Bui has already mysteriously disappeared with Daoxian senior brother, Su junior sister and Tian Bui had always been husband and wife. Right now she must be in a mess. So whatever it is, only I can make the decision. Lu Sueki looked up at Shueiyue master, hesitated for a moment, said, Teacher, what do you mean? Shueiyue master said, Although Daoxian senior brother and Tian Bui are missing but nobody knows where exactly they have gone, if they have left Qing Yun Hill, so I must stay on the hill, in case they both appear. I can also make a decision according to the situation. But at the same time we must also send people down the hill to search, among my sect disciples, those with strong will and skills. No one can be compared to you. This heavy responsibility, I can only pass it to you. Lu Sueki's face solemn, slowly knelt down in front of Shueiyue master. Just that she was after all an intelligent person, how could she not understand the implications? After a moment, she quietly said, Teacher's orders, disciple will obey. Just that disciple does not know. If disciple is to go down the hill to search for the 2 teachers, teacher can just instruct. Why must disciple be told this secret? Towards the end, Lu Sueki's voice trembled slightly. Shueiyue master's face was ashen, the muscles at the corners of her eyes seemed to be twitching. After a long silence, she slowly said, Tian Bui took the initiative to see Dao Xian's senior brother. Obviously he knew this secret and saw that Dao Xian's senior brother had been bitten by the evil spirit. Between the two of them, there must be a fierce battle. After you go down the hill, try your best to search for their whereabouts, if you can find them and at the same time discover that they are really fighting. Shueiyue Master's palm slowly clenched into a fist. You will find an opportunity. Kill that person who is controlled by the evil spirit. Lu Sueki's face was as pale as paper, but in the end she did not say anything, only slowly lowered her head. After a long time, in the deathly silence of the small house, her almost inaudible voice was heard, yes. Chapter 4:16. Majestic Fox Mountain, Ghost King Sect Headquarters. Along the way, Ghostly felt his mind was blank, only that mysterious and indistinct girl figure, always lingering before his eyes. Just that, he clearly knew, that should be an illusion, right? Could it not be? In a daze, he then realized that he had unknowingly walked back to the stone room that belonged to him. The stone door was open. Looking in from outside, he could still see the mess inside. It was the result of the inexplicable fight between him and Ghost King. He looked at the mess, was silent for a long time, slowly walked in, beside the broken table, found a chair that was still intact and sat down, in a daze. The monkey Xiao Hui ran over from the side, looked like it was still in low spirits, without a word climbed up Ghost Li's shoulder, sat down and then also in a daze. Maybe it was still worried about Tao Tai. One man one monkey, sat like that for a long time, not a single sound was heard. The entire stone chamber seemed unusually oppressive. At the end, suddenly Ghost Li's body moved and then stretched out his hand, pulled Xiao Hui down from his shoulder and raised it in front of him. The monkey's 3 eyes blinked at the same time, looked at Ghostly. Ghostly quietly said, "Xiao Hui, what do you say I should do?" The monkey Xiao Hui did not make a sound, only looked at him. Ghostly also did not seem to mind its reply, only quietly muttered to himself, "This path, how exactly should I walk in the mountains?" Time flowed past like water. In the deepest secret place in the mountain belly, in the huge blood pool, a strong stench of blood drifted, this strange existence, quietly hiding in the forgotten corner of the world, quietly germinating. Naturally, other than 2 people, Ghost King and Mr. Ghost. In the huge blood pool, it was still filled with dark red blood. Numerous bubbles occasionally rose from the depths of the blood pool, bounced up and burst on the water surface, splashing out fine blood flowers. Just like before, huge spiritual beasts were imprisoned in this blood pool, just that other than Kuei-Nyo, Yellow Bird. Right now, there were 2 more figures in the blood pool. One was the strange beast Tao Tai, who was struggling but ultimately unable to do anything. The other figure was an unusually huge monster, its head like the legendary dragon, its body almost twice as big as Kuei-Nyo. Because most of it was covered in the blood water, the specific shape could not be seen clearly, but from a few parts of its body protruding out of the water, one could imagine that it must be the legendary evil sect magical beast Zhulong. Kuei-Nyo and Yellow Bird had been imprisoned for a long time, were already on the verge of death, unable to lift their spirits. The Zhulong also looked listless, lifeless, only the Tao Tai, because it was just captured, its mental strength was still considered intact. From time to time it made angry roars, inciting waves in the blood water around it, clearly extremely enraged. Just that in this blood pool, there seemed to be an unusual force. Not only imprisoned the other 3 strange beasts, even the Tao Tai could not break free, roared and struggled but ultimately to no avail. Other than that, in the sky above the blood pool, compared to before, there was another strange phenomenon. That mysterious and strange ancient divine object, the hidden dragon cauldron, right now was suspended in the air 50 feet above the blood pool. From the 4 ancient cauldron legs below the cauldron, each shot out a faint purple mixed with red light, shining down from above, shining on the 4 strange beasts. Looking from afar, it was obvious that in these 4 rays of light, there was an indistinct rich spiritual power, forcefully sucked out from those strange beasts, into the hidden dragon cauldron. and because it was continuously absorbing the almost endless spiritual power from these strange beasts, the hidden dragon cauldron's original ancient and profound appearance had already slowly started to change. The entire cauldron was enveloped by a rising auspicious air. The original ancient color was slowly fading, and replacing it was a warm, jade-like color, gradually becoming somewhat transparent. Looking at it, it almost made one think that this was the legendary celestial holy object, extraordinary and incongruous with the blood pool below it which reeked of blood. Just that, under this celestial aura lingering on the exterior, there was still a strange place. That was the mysterious pattern on the cauldron. The four strange beasts' pictures flickered. The huge cauldron inscription that symbolized the hidden dragon cauldron itself was also slowly changing color. Only at the top of the pattern, that savage deity's face was instead dark red like blood, as if greedily absorbing the power about to come to life. Far away from the blood pool on a high platform, Ghost King and Mr. Ghost stood side by side. Mr. Ghost was dressed in black. His entire person still seemed to be shrouded in the dark shadows. Even standing in front of him, one could not see his figure clearly. Right now, he was using a deep voice, speaking to Ghost King. That's right, the hidden dragon cauldron inscription was indeed true. When the four spirits gather, the chaos will open. Right now the four divinities' blood formation is completed. What's left is to wait for 49 days, until the hidden dragon cauldron finishes gathering the four spirits. The power of chaos will then be enough to split heaven and earth, reopen the Azura door, then sect head you will be able to control the supreme celestial power of heaven and earth, invincible again. Ghost King's face was flushed, his eyes glinting, staring intently at the hidden dragon cauldron in the air, excitement unconcealable on his face. He suddenly looked up to the sky, laughed out loud. The laughter was loud and savage, carrying arrogance and stubbornness, as if he was already the ruler of the world. Just that this arrogant laughter suddenly stopped, Ghost King frowned, used his hand to gently press his chest. At the same time the redness on his face instantly faded, a paleness, but the next moment, golden energy flashed past his face. Not long after, he had already returned to normal. Mr. Ghost stood beside, saw the changes in his expression, with his knowledge and eyesight, couldn't help but be startled, asked in surprise, "Who did you fight with? Who is that person, to have such skills?" Ghost King took a deep breath. His countenance had completely returned to normal. After closing his eyes for a moment, he slowly opened his eyes. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, coldly said, "Great Brahman wisdom and Tai Chi Xian Qing Wei are indeed unparalleled wondrous skills, although not as sharp as our evil sect's supernatural powers, but the after-effect is long and abundant, really frightening." Mr. Ghost frowned, a strange glint flashed in his eyes, said, "It's him? Why did you fight with him for no reason?" Speaking until here, he suddenly seemed to recall something, said, "Could it be because of Tao Tai?" Ghost King snorted but did not answer Mr. Ghost, only indifferently said, "This child's skills advance quickly, it is really unexpected. I'm afraid in the future, it may become a source of trouble, it is also very hard to say." Mr. Ghost looked deeply at Ghost King and then looked away, unhurriedly said, "Under the most urgent situation, the four divinities' blood formation is still the priority. Other matters can be avoided if possible." Ghost King nodded slightly, said, "That's right, I know the severity, don't worry." Mr. Ghost hesitated for a moment, said, "But with Ghost Lee's unfathomable skills, in addition with the strengthening of the four divinities' blood formation's absorption of spiritual energy, the bloody scene will definitely be hard to conceal. With him here, unavoidably there will be more variables. To avoid any accidents, you better find an excuse and send him out." Ghost King was silent for a moment, said, "You are right." After speaking, he frowned slightly, turned around, clasped his hands behind his back, slowly walked out of the blood pool. Watching Ghost King's figure gradually disappearing, Mr. Ghost then slowly turned around, walked to the side of the platform and looked down. The strange beast Tautai, which was still struggling with all its might, seemed to be under the double shock from the blood pool and the hidden dragon cauldron's light, gradually lost its ability to resist. Right now it was also powerlessly lying in the blood pool, panting continuously. Watching this scene, under the black veil, Mr. Ghost slowly emitted a cold and emotionless sneer. Heh. Azura door footsteps were heard outside the stone door, sounded rather hurried, evidently the person was running over, very hurried. Not long after, a figure appeared outside Ghostly's stone room, half knelt down, loudly said, "Deputy Sect Head, Ghost King Sect Head has sent a message, asking you to meet him." The voice was loud and clear, to the extent that there were faint echoes in the stone room, but there was no reply. The person was startled but did not immediately raise his head. Ghostly in the evil sect Ghost King Sect had always been notorious for killing. Ordinary sect members rarely dared to go near him, not to mention being rude. That person then boldly raised his voice and said again, but there was still no response. He then raised his head and looked into the stone room. What greeted his eyes was a chaotic scene, but where was Ghostly and the monkey Xiao Hui who was always with him? The man groaned, shook his head, and ran away with large strides. Right now, Ghostly was walking in the Ghost King Sect's long tunnel, the monkey Xiao Hui quietly crouched on his shoulder. Ghostly looked ahead, although he could not see the end of the tunnel, but he knew very clearly, the end of the tunnel was where Ghost King resided. "No matter what, I can't be idling here, right, Xiao Hui?" He seemed to be softly muttering to himself, and the monkey Xiao Hui was also in a daze, did not notice its master's words at all, and Ghostly did not care. A few times there was hope, but at the last moment it was all for naught. But as long as Bai Yao was still lying there, I cannot despair, right? He gave a low bitter laugh. Chapter 4:17. I know what you are worried about. Don't worry, wait until I find a way to cure Bai Yao. I will naturally ask him for your friend back. The monkey Xiao Hui's ears suddenly perked up and then called out twice. Ghostly smiled, but the smile did not stay on his face for long and disappeared again. He stood at the entrance of Ghost King's stone chamber. Outside the heavy stone door, that already familiar voice was heard. Ghost King sat upright on the chair. In his mind, for some reason, his daughter's figure flashed past. An extremely complicated emotion was floating in his mind. The stone door opened, Ghostly's figure appeared. "You are here," Ghost King indifferently said. "Yes." Ghostly slowly nodded, his voice equally indifferent. Both men were silent, as if nothing had happened between them. After a moment, Ghostly said, "There is one thing I want to tell you." "Say it." Ghostly indifferently said, "You have already brought the sect back here, and I have also brought Tautai back for you. If there is nothing else in the near future, I want to go out again, see if I can find a way to save Bai Yao." Ghost King frowned, glanced at Ghostly, and at this moment, hurried footsteps were heard outside the door. That messenger ran over and was about to speak when he suddenly saw Ghostly and Ghost King talking face to face, couldn't help but was startled. Ghost King quietly waved his hand to that person. That person hesitated for a moment, bowed and quietly retreated. Ghost King's eyes slowly turned to Ghostly. This young man was still quietly standing there, looking at the evil sect from top to bottom. No matter who it was, standing in front of Ghost King, they would definitely be in fear and trepidation, only he seemed to have never been afraid. Was this the man his daughter loved with all her heart? "You go." Ghost King's voice suddenly seemed to have some tiredness. Ghostly silently nodded. That fight not long ago, although both of them pretended nothing had happened, but obviously, their already unfriendly relationship seemed to have drifted apart. He turned around and walked out. However, just as he was about to step out of the door, his body suddenly paused. An indescribable and strange aura came out of nowhere. It was as if he was suddenly placed in a bottomless abyss of blood, and it was difficult to breathe. It was also as if a huge wave had pressed down on him in the blink of an eye. The smell of blood was like a calamity, and it violently rumbled in his ears. Ghostly's expression changed. However, This strange aura was like a dream, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The surroundings quieted down and returned to normal. The Ghost King's voice rang out behind him, calm and emotionless. "What's wrong?" Ghostly, with his back facing him, stood there for a moment, faintly said, "Nothing." After saying that, he slowly walked away. The stone door slowly closed behind him. When it completely closed with the stone wall, Ghostly suddenly swiftly turned around. A glint flashed in his eyes, staring deeply at Ghost King's stone door. His gaze was deep and difficult to understand, and seemed to be perplexed. And Ghost King in the stone chamber expressionlessly looked at that stone door for a long time, seemed to be thinking about something, but eventually still shook his head, turned and walked to the other side of the chamber, patted a few times on the stone wall. The next moment, the seemingly complete piece of stone wall actually moved to the side, revealing a secret passage that only one person could pass through. And a thick smell of blood also emanated from that secret passage. Ghost King expressionlessly walked in. The stone wall behind him slowly closed up. Somewhere in the Central Plains, thousands of miles away from the southern border, it was closer to Qin Yun Hill. This place was a desolate wilderness, uninhabited. Looking at the undulating mountain range, a long river flowed past it. Based on the geographical records, this nameless mountain range belonged to the tail end of the incomparably vast Qin Yun Hill mountain range, and that long river between the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges could also be considered one of the upstream tributaries of that river outside Heyang City. Just that it was after all far away from the Qin Yun spiritual vein, ferocious beasts roaming about, apes crying and tigers roaring. There was not a trace of celestial spirituality. Just that in this forgotten place, the tranquility was broken today. Two figures streaked across the sky, chasing one another. The person in front was shrouded in a black shadow, the person behind was a flash of gray light, both as fast as lightning. The black shadow moved up and down in the air, and suddenly fell into the desolate forest, twisting and turning. It was an extremely ingenious move. Unfortunately, the gray shadow that was chasing after him really had an unfathomable supernatural power. It countered every move and actually chased after him closely, not falling behind even a little bit. It looked like it was gradually closing in. Suddenly, the black figure in front seemed to know that for the time being he could not shake off the person behind him. In the swift like lightning dashing, his body suddenly paused. Immediately the black figure trembled, like a nail nailed to the ground. And almost at the same time, the black figure swiftly turned around, his right hand pointed 5 times in the air. Only to hear a duo-duo sound. In this desolate forest, under the broad daylight, impressively appeared 5 spots of fire. Within the flames, there was a vague image of a ferocious skeleton. The wind whistled as it pounced towards the pursuing gray shadow. That gray figure in an instant had already reached in front of him, but he also stopped when he said to, just that he was fully focused, as if facing a formidable enemy. Obviously he did not dare to let his guard down against these 5 spots of fire. After a moment, a cold light flowed beside the gray figure's hand. A crystal-clear 2-headed sharp tube-shaped magical weapon appeared. As soon as this magic treasure appeared, the surrounding ground and branches were instantly covered in a layer of white frost, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped. The 5 spots of fire came like the wind. The gray figure's magical weapon spun in the air, sucked the 5 spots of fire into the magical weapon. After a moment, like fire meeting ice, the 5 spots of fire slowly dimmed down and finally extinguished. And the black light and gray air also gradually dispersed. 9 cold ice freezing thorn. It was really an incredible magical weapon. Like lamenting and also like praising, but there was no anger in his tone. That black-attired man quietly said. And standing opposite him was a gray-attired old man. He was the number 2 figure of the southern border Fenxiang Valley, Shangguan Su, and the magical weapon in his hand was naturally the 9 cold ice freezing thorn that even the 9-tailed celestial fox was wary of. Shangguansu dryly laughed twice, in a deep voice, said, "To be able to receive your demon shaman's praise, it is really not easy." This black-attired man was actually the shaman demon who escaped from the southern border subdued devil ancient cave. Just that why did he and Shangguansu ended up in such a situation? The shaman demon assessed Shangguansu a few times, suddenly sighed and said, "Old friend, you and I are not just a day or two of friendship, why must you still force me?" Shangguansu indifferently said, "I have already told you my purpose, there is no other meaning. It is just that our Fenxiang Valley Master would like to meet you. There are some matters that we can discuss in depth, therefore would like to invite you to Fenxiang Valley. It is that simple." The shaman demon shook his head with a bitter smile, said, "That Valley Master senior brother of yours is too scheming. Although I have lived foolishly in this world, but I cannot compare to him. Besides, do you think I do not know your purpose? It is just for our shaman tribe's secrets, right?" Shangguansu snorted, said, "It is good that you know, now that the southern border is in a mess, the 5 tribes in chaos, we need Fenxiang Valley to come out and preside over the big plan. Moreover, we do not have any malicious intentions. No matter what, we are also much better than those vicious demon beasts, right?" The shaman demon looked at him deeply, said, "The secret of the shaman tribe Heavenfire, I really do not know. Old friend, on account of our many years of friendship, please let me go." Shangguansu shook his head, said, "I also have no choice." After speaking, the 9 cold ice condensing thorn in his hand slowly drew a semicircle in the air, emitting a biting cold air, again pressed towards the shaman demon. The shaman demon stood motionless, not knowing if it was because he already understood that he could not escape Shangguansu's pursuit, gave up the effort, only indifferently said, "Old friend, this world is so big, everything changes without reason. That day I did not follow Goddess and Big Brother to the Netherworld, was because I wanted to make use of my remaining years, to go to Central Plains again to see the various forms of this world. Don't tell me even this small request, you are also not willing to give me a chance?" Shangguansu snorted, ignored him, clearly did not believe his words at all. Right now he was already 3 chi from the shaman demon, but at this moment, his countenance suddenly changed, both eyes staring at the ground. In the daytime, the sunlight shone down, the shaman demon's body looked like it was floating, but there was no sign of it, and the body slightly trembled with the wind, looked like it was about to float up. Shangguansu moved, in a blink he was already before the shaman demon. The 9 cold ice condensing thorns struck down, immediately a cold light with unstoppable force, split the shaman demon into 2 from the middle, just that these 2 halves, instantly turned into black smoke, swiftly dispersed in the air. Shangguansu was so angry that his face turned pale. He knew that he had inadvertently fallen into the shaman demon's diversionary tactic again. Fiercely stamping his feet, he leapt up, leapt into the air, surveyed his surroundings, saw a black figure escaping far away, heading towards the north. Without speaking, he turned into a gray light, directly pursued. Chapter 4:18. At the foot of Qing Yun Hill. The sky was high and the clouds were light. Standing at the foot of the hill and looking up, a stretch of azure blue, a gentle breeze blew over, invigorating one's spirit. Anan watched for a long while. There was no one around. Naturally no one would discover this secluded foot of the hill. There was such a beautiful girl quietly watching the sky. The cool breeze blew over, her shoulder-length hair gently fluttered, brushed past her slightly thin face. Master Shuiwe's advice before she left, incessantly resounded beside her ears. That year from Daoxian's senior brother and Wan's senior brother's conversation, we know that the generations of Qing Yun's sect head reverend, when they were still conscious, would tell this secret to the next generation of disciples, and the generations of ancestors passed down their will, for the sake of Qing Yun's sect's reputation and the world's common people, in order to avoid more killings. When the last resort, the succeeding disciples can kill their teachers. This time Daoxian's senior brother, for some reason, did not tell Shao Yikai this secret. To me, there are only 2 reasons. 1. Daoxian's senior brother, before he made up his mind to tell Shao Yikai this secret, he was already devoured by the evil spirit of Zhu Xian ancient sword. 2. Dao Xian's senior brother was confident of his high skills, especially in the fierce battle 10 years ago. He used the Zhu Xian sword formation but did not see the evil spirit devouring him, therefore he thought this time he could also withstand it. When the real evil spirit devoured him, it was already too late. Just that even though the situation is like this, but we as Qin Yun disciples, no matter what, we cannot stay out of it. Tian Bui disappeared. Su Junior's sister is in a mess. Only I can make this difficult decision. I only hope that everything will end on the mountain. You do not have to participate in it, but if they are really discovered at the foot of the mountain, you will also have to do your best to shoulder this great responsibility. Qin Yun generations of ancestors have spirits, will definitely protect you and me, teacher and disciple. Anan slowly opened her eyes, breathed deeply. Turning her head to look, the majestic mountains behind her, tall and straight, the distant mountains rising and falling, steep cliffs towering, everywhere was graceful, everywhere was a scenery. Towering into the clouds, towering over the world. It was for Qin Yun. A faint and warm smile slowly surfaced at the corner of her mouth. This mountain range was after all the place where she grew up, had her respected teachers, close senior and junior sisters, and also what she once had. Memories. She turned around and walked away. Her white clothes were like snow, fluttering in the wind. Heaven and earth were so vast, the blue dome of heaven boundless. Even if she was a peerless beauty, a matchless hero, perhaps she was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Speaking of which, this was the first time that he had come down from the mountain under the orders of his teacher, but he didn't have a clear place to go. Although he had a heavy responsibility, he did not know where to go to complete this task. Thinking about it, it was a bit ridiculous. Tianya quietly held in his hand, but there was no familiar feeling. It should be said that it had long become a part of his body. The faint blue light was already withdrawn into the scabbard. A man and a sword walked over leisurely. Where should I go? The world was so vast. Before her was a three-way fork. Lu Sueki stopped. It was not that she did not know the way. Among the Qin Yun sect disciples, she was considered the one who went down the mountain more frequently. The flat road in front of her, she had walked on it countless times. It was the most convenient way out of Qin Yun Hill, directly leading to the largest city at the foot of Qin Yun Hill, Hyang City. And the other fork road looked like it had been abandoned for a long time, wild grass overgrown. Only a section near the fork was faintly visible. Looking at it from afar, the further places had long been submerged by the wild grass. Actually, this kind of small mountain path, there were many of them coming down from Qin Yun Hill. Many of them were made by the villagers who lived near the foot of Qin Yun Hill, to make a living by going up the mountain to chop firewood or pick wild fruit. There were also many roads. Due to various reasons, over the years it had also become this abandoned. This road, who knew where it would lead to, and who would remember, who had walked on it before? Lu Sueki shook her head slightly, smiled bitterly in her heart. Ever since she returned from southern border, separated from that person till now, her state of mind had really changed a lot. She gently shook her head, wanted to throw away this thought, and was about to walk on the main road again. At this time, from the other end of the main road, villagers in twos and threes, old and young, looking at their clothing, most of them were carrying axes, hemp ropes and carrying poles, seemed like they were the woodcutters from the nearby villages who were going up the mountain to chop firewood. When they neared, these woodcutters saw Lu Sueki. All of them made way, their faces revealing a respectful expression. Qin Yun sect disciples within the radius of several hundred miles were already revered by the people. Moreover, Lu Sueki's peerless beauty, floating like a fairy, made it even more so that no one dared to stare at her. Lu Sueki stopped, nodded slightly to them, considered returning the greeting and was about to leave. At this moment, suddenly one of the old woodcutters whose hair had already turned white but was still spirited, seemed very enthusiastic, laughed and said, "Miss, you don't know the way?" Lu Sueki's body paused slightly, stopped, Her eyes turned, glanced at that old woodcutter's, hesitated for a moment, gently shook her head. Just that before she could speak, that enthusiastic old woodcutters had already said, "I know you Qing Yun sect cultivators are powerful, many times you fly here and there, but to talk about the road under your feet, sometimes you are not as familiar as us country people." The few woodcutters heard it, all laughed. Lu Sweki looked at their kind faces. For some reason her heart suddenly felt warm. The steps that she was about to take, once again stopped. The old woodcutters laughed and said, "That main road in front of you, it leads to Hyang City in the south. That is the most bustling place within 100 miles. Once you reach there, it will be much easier to go to other places." Speaking, he again pointed to that abandoned path, said, "Don't go that road. Many years ago it was also a bustling village, but now it is all destroyed, no one is left." Lu Sweki smiled and said, "I understand, many thanks, sir." The old woodcutters waved his hand, laughed twice, and continued to walk towards Qing Yun Hill. At the same time a slightly younger woodcutters beside him sighed and said, "Originally there was a temple in that village, heard it was quite efficacious. More than 10 years ago my wife and I went there to pray to Bodhisattva, and in the end we did have a child. Unfortunately it is also gone now." The old woodcutters nodded and said, "Yes, I also remember. It is really a pity that the temple is gone." Their voices gradually turned low, their figures also gradually disappeared into the forest. In the distant breeze, there seemed to be their cheerful and forthright laughter. Lu Sweki turned around, the smile on her face was still there. For some reason, her mood seemed to be much better. With a smile, she lifted her head and walked towards the main road. Her footsteps were originally brisk, but for some reason, her footsteps suddenly slowed down. Her delicate brows slightly frowned. Deep in her heart, something important seemed to have flashed past, but for a moment she did not grasp it. Deep in her memories, something seemed to be quietly awakening. She stood still, quietly and motionless. The scene just now, quickly replayed in her mind, the woodcutter's words once again resounded. "Don't go that road. Many years ago, it was also a bustling village, but now it is all destroyed. There is no one. Originally there was a temple in that village. I heard that it was very effective." Lu Sweki's whole body suddenly trembled. After a moment, she slowly turned around, once again looked at the path overgrown with weeds, as if it had been submerged in the afterimage of time. How many things can change in 10 years? Appearance, mood, or hatred? No one can understand others, and sometimes even oneself can't really understand. However, this was the only path that had truly changed. Because there is no road here. The dense growth of weeds, year after year, covered the past history, witnessed the ruthlessness of time, until a lonely white figure quietly approached the dusty place. In the weeds, you can still vaguely see the ruins. In the breeze blowing in the face, there is no longer the bloody smell of the past, there is only the slightly fresh fragrance of weeds. Walking past one after another broken doors, looking at the collapsed stone steps and walls covered by moss, those smiles and smiles that she once had in her lifetime, the happiness that she once had all dispersed with the wind? Lu Sweki's face turned slightly pale, her slender and delicate hands held Tianya even tighter. In this abandoned village, there seemed to be someone's gaze, quietly watching her. She even had a feeling that she couldn't breathe. But she never stopped, quietly walked like that, walked past every house. Once upon a time, who would still remember the people here? Until she saw that dilapidated temple. Different from the surrounding environment, around that dilapidated temple, for some reason, not a single blade of grass grew. Saying it was a house, it would be more appropriate to say it was a few pillars. Just that on the remaining broken stones on the ground, there was still a vague image of a deity. Then she could tell where this used to be. Lu Sweki slowly walked over. No weeds, no moss, everything here seemed out of place. Not knowing why, even such tenacious weeds were unwilling to enter this place. Or could it be that the resentment and grudges all gathered at this place? Then in the dead of the night, would there be someone crying and whispering, talking about the past? Lou Sweckie suddenly turned around, not knowing when, her eyes were glistening with tears. Grastemple Village. This was a place that had long been forgotten. She quietly sat at the corner, motionless, as if quietly listening to something, or perhaps feeling something. A wind blew over from afar, blowing her black hair, gently fluttering. The sun rose and set, day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night, the stars changing. The white clouds in the firmament were like old dogs, disappearing like shooting stars, time like water, in the end it left resolutely, never stopping for anyone. In the weeds far away, not knowing where the cries of insects were heard, other than the sound of the wind, this was the most lively sound here. Maybe, in another 10 years, this place would once again become a flourishing place? Or perhaps it would still be the same as before. Who would care? 3 days, Lou Sweckie in this desolate place, quietly sat for 3 days, the constraints of the world, heavy responsibilities and great responsibilities, but it turned out that only in such a place, there was a place to escape. Quietly, he would just treat it as indulging himself and hiding. Just that, she still had to leave. Her white clothes swayed, quietly came, Lou Sweckie's figure, reappeared, left that dilapidated little temple, again walked past the small house doors under the dilapidated walls. For some reason, her gaze seemed to contain a reluctance to part with this place. In the distant horizon, the clouds floated, indistinctly, like being blown by the wind. A white line quietly streaked across the sky. Lou Sweckie took a last look at these houses, turned and left, never looking back again. That white clothes fluttering figure quietly walked away in the weeds. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.